Hey guys, tonight, we're going deep into a darkness far beyond the absence of light. This is the kind that weighs on your chest, that lingers behind your eyes. It's pitch black. The air is thick and unmoving. The walls press in close, damp soil brushing your arms with every shift. You don't walk in. You don't crouch. You flatten yourself and crawl, inch by inch, through a narrow cavity carved from clay and from a fear you never knew you had. Welcome to Vietnam. Welcome to the tunnels. So, before we go any further, let's take a second. If you've enjoyed the storytelling I bring to this channel, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Drop your local time and location in the comments. 2. I'm always fascinated by where you're listening from and when. But tonight, more than anything, dim the lights around you. Let the silence creep in. Turn on a quiet fan or ambient noise if you like. Settle yourself, and prepare to follow the story underground. The entrance is barely visible at first. Just a patch of disturbed dirt, lightly disguised beneath leaves and branches. Someone else spotted it earlier in the day, maybe just a brief collapse of foliage or an odd angle in the underbrush. Now it's your turn to find out what lies beyond. The opening is scarcely larger than a storm drain. You can't walk into it. You can't even duck. You press your arms to your sides, lower yourself to the ground, and wriggle forward. Your right hand grips a small flashlight with trembling fingers. In your left is a revolver, its cold metal slick against your palm. Your heartbeat feels confused, uncertain whether to thunder in defiance or stop completely in dread. This is not a jungle adventure, not some vivid postcard of palm trees and sunshine. It's the summer of 1966. You're here because you volunteered, or perhaps because fate decided you were short, agile, and unlucky enough to be noticed by the wrong sergeant on the wrong day. You've been assigned the role of tunnel rat, which is not a title you earn so much as one that is handed to you without ceremony. No one congratulates you. There's no medal for fitting into holes in the earth. You ease yourself into the tunnel's mouth. There is no grand descent, no welcoming chamber. Just the cold, tight embrace of soil pressing in from every angle. You slide feet first at first, using your elbows and knees for leverage. Then, when the walls tighten even further, you twist your torso and settle onto your stomach. The last rays of daylight vanish behind you, swallowed by the curved earthen throat of the tunnel. The air changes as you go. It's not just humid. It's old. Stale. It smells of compacted dirt, rusted nails, spent gunpowder, and something else you can't quite name. It's a scent that hints at rot. Maybe mold. You tell yourself it's mold. You don't believe it. There is no room to maneuver. No space to turn around. If you get stuck, the only direction left is forward. You can't even sit up or kneel. You pull yourself with your arms and push with your toes. The flashlight beam shudders with each motion, casting fractured shadows that slide along the walls like they're alive. The darkness feels amused, like it's waiting to see what you'll do next. The heat down here is suffocating. Outside, in the jungle, at least the breeze moves. But inside this burrow, the air lies still, heavy, unmoving. It wraps around you like wet wool, seeping through your uniform, turning fabric into paste. You left your helmet behind, it wouldn't fit through the tunnel's opening. Even your primary weapon, the standard issue M16, was discarded above ground. Down here, it would be as useful as a garden rake. In its place, you carry a .45 caliber revolver. The weapon is heavy in your hand, but it feels more like a placeholder than protection. Like someone gave you a symbol of reassurance and hoped it would be enough, a sound. Faint. Not loud enough to be alarming. Just, different. Not your movement. Not your breath. Something else. A soft metallic tick. Or maybe it's the scratch of claws on clay. You freeze in place. Your heart doesn't. It speeds up. You hold your breath and wait. Silence stretches out, elastic and tense. When nothing follows, you resume crawling. The metal clasp of your belt scrapes gently along the earth, its noise somehow louder than before. The historians still argue about what it meant to be a tunnel rat. Some call it bravery. Others call it madness. They're probably both right. It was certainly among the most lethal roles assigned during the war. The Viet Cong didn't just dig hideouts. They built entire underground complexes, networks of passageways, weapon caches, hospitals, even living quarters. Some tunnels ran for hundreds of meters, interconnected across miles of forest. Worse, some passages had booby traps, false turns, or deadly pockets. The entrance you chose might belong to one system, but 10 meters in, you could be navigating a completely different labyrinth. None of that mattered, though. All that mattered was surviving the next few feet. You come to a junction. A fork in the path. The tunnel splits to the left and to the right. You shine your flashlight in each direction. All you see is more of the same, compressed clay walls, packed dirt, emptiness. You pause. Then, as if you flipped a coin in your head, you turn left. It doesn't feel like a decision. It feels like accepting what was already going to happen. There is no map in your hand. No compass. You are somewhere beneath the forest canopy, beneath the war, beneath the sun. You try not to think about how your movements might be echoing ahead. You try not to think about who else might be listening. Sometimes you remember hearing that these tunnels were dug with little more than hands, picks, and makeshift tools. Years of work. Sometimes decades. The Siu Chi tunnels, especially, were masterpieces of endurance and concealment. That thought unnerves you more than any story about tripwires or snakes. The idea that someone lived down here, not just briefly but intentionally, disturbs your understanding of what humans are willing to do. A pressure shift brushes against your cheek. The tunnel opens into a small hollow. Maybe a supply cache. You pull yourself into the slightly wider space and sweep your flashlight. There's no one here, but it doesn't feel empty. You see claw marks on the wall. A pair of plastic sandals. A battered canteen. There's a faint scent of rice. Not old rice. Recently cooked. You are not alone in the way you thought. You slide forward again. Back to the narrow channel. Back to the heat, the silence, the closeness. The walls have grown tighter, or maybe your nerves have. You twist your head slightly to avoid bumping the ceiling. Your shoulders brush the sides now. The tunnel's squeeze has become familiar but no less oppressive. You remember hearing that some tunnel rats scrounged for alternative weapons. German Lugers. Sawn-off shotguns. Anything that could be fired quickly and wouldn't jam in tight quarters. But a Luger was quiet. A shotgun, though, could tear your hearing apart. In a tunnel, that meant permanent damage. Still, some men chose it anyway. Everyone adjusted. There was no training course. No manual. You survived by guessing. Or by listening to the last guy who made it out. Another sound. Behind you this time. Fainter. You cannot turn to check. Your body simply won't fit in reverse. You stop moving. Listen again. Silence. Maybe it was your own foot dragging. Maybe not, your flashlight flickers. Just once. A cruel stutter. Then it returns, the beam just as narrow, just as trembling. You don't trust it anymore. You weren't sure you ever did. A new smell hits. Strong. Chemical. Sweet in a way that shouldn't be sweet. Your eyes sting. Your throat burns. A gas trap. You recognize it too late to avoid. You reach into your pocket, grab a rag, and hold it tightly over your mouth and nose. You crawl faster now. Panic will not help, but still, you move. One elbow at a time. One knee. Your left forearm slips into something cold and wet. You do not stop to question what it was, then, at last, you arrive at another open chamber. Bigger than the last. A makeshift kitchen, maybe. You see scorched sticks in a circle. An empty tin pot. A rusted spoon with a few clinging grains of rice. Someone cooked here. Ate here. Sat here. Perhaps not long ago. You listen again, still nothing, just your breath, shallow and ragged. Just your pulse, steady and loud inside your skull. And far, far above, so far you can't feel it anymore, the memory of birds in the trees, the rustle of jungle leaves, the touch of wind, but the war isn't only in the jungle. It lives down here too. In the stillness. In the damp. In the space between flashlight beams and footsteps, and this, despite everything, is only the beginning. You don't get far before the tunnel narrows again. The space constricts like a throat tightening around you, pressing in from all directions. You can feel the walls lean closer, as if the very earth is inhaling and you are caught in its lungs. The air is thicker here, more humid, more oppressive. It clings to your skin and fills your nose with a scent that is both ancient and immediate. Each movement forward becomes more labored. You're no longer crawling with intent. You are inching forward like a creature without limbs, pushing your weight side to side in a motion that feels humiliating and absurd. If it weren't so terrifying, you might almost laugh at yourself. But this isn't funny. Not even close. Then, your palm lands on something unexpected. It isn't dirt. It isn't rock. It has give. It's soft. Warmer than the surrounding ground, for your body reacts before your brain can fully comprehend. You flinch so hard your back hits the tunnel ceiling. Your flashlight drops lower. The beam sweeps across the dirt, and then you see them, rats. Not a few. A cluster. Their bodies are long, thick, twitching with life and indifference. They are not startled by your presence. One lifts its head and stares directly at you, black eyes glinting in the light, whiskers twitching like sensors. It does not blink. It does not scurry. It simply watches, as if sizing you up. These are not lab rats. These are beasts born in filth, raised in rot, fed on spoiled food, blood, and who knows what else. One brushes across your forearm with its damp tail. You feel its claws scrape lightly against your skin. You clamp your teeth down hard and force the sound rising in your throat to stay there. Even here, even now, silence is your only ally. You knew, of course, that you were not truly alone in these tunnels. But part of you had hoped that your company would be less mobile, less aware, less capable of touching you. That small hope evaporates under the weight of twitching tails and tiny eyes. There are stories that circulate among soldiers, half-whispered during downtime, dismissed by officers, repeated by those who have seen too much. Some say the Viet Cong used animals in their defenses. Official records deny it, but unofficial tales speak of snakes tied by the tail near entrances, cages of monkeys trained to scream at movement, and once, a dead-end room filled with scorpions left to wander. None of this is confirmed. None of it needs to be. All it takes is one unexpected sound, one unfamiliar texture in the dark, to send your stomach into knots. Then it begins. The traps, it happens fast. You shift your arm forward, and something gives, a faint vibration of tension, like brushing against a spider's thread. A wire. Your body reacts instantly. You jerk your arm back, heart racing. Nothing happens. At least not immediately. But you know, deep down, that something has been triggered. You stay completely still. Breathing shallow. Muscles locked. You scan the area with your flashlight, searching. Waiting, there. Just inches from your shin, a spike trap has begun to deploy. It hangs in frozen hesitation. Half released. You stare at it. A crude but deadly mechanism, triggered by movement, designed to catch you mid-stride or mid-crawl. This time, you were lucky, but luck is temporary. The traps you find in these tunnels are not just instruments of war. They are expressions of fear turned into ingenuity. Bamboo spikes, often coated in human or animal waste to cause infections. Tripwires connected to grenade pins, ready to pull at the slightest touch. Pits lined with sharpened sticks and hidden under leaves. Swinging blades set into walls. Trapdoors above that could drop stones, venomous creatures, or worse. Every design is a lesson in how to kill without being there. You adjust your crawling style now. Every limb becomes a sensor. Every step is an act of negotiation. You move slower. You listen harder. Your flashlight feels heavier in your hand. It is no longer just a tool. It is a lifeline. And still, you never let it go. You think back to the so-called training you received before coming here. A plywood structure set up behind base camp. An above-ground mock tunnel, lined with smooth panels, equipped with lights, kept cool by fans. You practiced crawling for maybe 15 minutes at a time. You were told to get a feel for the job. You laugh now, but the sound comes out strained, hollow. More like a cough. That plywood tunnel was a child's game. This is not practice. This is punishment. The passage opens slightly ahead of you. You breathe, hopeful for a moment. Maybe a resting point. Maybe a room, but instead of a chamber, the tunnel slopes. Downward, of course it does. You place one hand forward, testing the incline. The dirt is compacted but smooth, slick from condensation and sweat. There is nothing to grab. No root, no rock, no handhold. Behind you lies the triggered trap. Ahead is darkness. Your options have narrowed. You slide forward. The descent is slow but not steady. You control it as best you can. Dirt clings to your arms, your face, your chest. It fills your boots. It seeps into every seam of your uniform. The smell becomes stronger, an earthy rot, mixed with the acrid tang of human sweat and something more animal. You do not think about how many people have descended here and never returned. You can't afford to. At the bottom, the slope levels. Barely. The tunnel stretches out again. You start to move, then you hear it, a hiss. The sound is sharp, deliberate, unmistakable. You freeze. Flashlight up. The beam trembles, then steadies. There it is. In the shadows, coiled tightly, a snake waits. Its body is slender but long. Its scales shimmer slightly in the light. The head is raised. The tongue flicks out, testing the air. It does not move toward you. But it does not move away. You know enough to stay still. One bite, depending on the species, could mean unconsciousness in minutes. Death shortly after. There is no anti-venom here. No medic. No helicopter coming to lift you out. If the snake strikes, this tunnel becomes your grave. You inch backward, heart pounding. The snake watches, then slowly lowers its head. You move past it. It allows it. You feel like you have been given a gift. You breathe again. Your hands are shaking. You don't know when it started. Maybe after the rats. Maybe after the trap. Maybe after the snake. You can't tell anymore. Every finger buzzes. Every nerve hums. Not from exhaustion, but from a mix of fear and adrenaline that has nowhere to go. Your body is waiting for the next thing to panic over, and then, it finds one, something brushes your leg. Not fur. A wire. This time, your reaction is slower. Your body freezes a second too late. There is a snap, not the metallic crunch of a blade. Not the shriek of something sharp. Just a dull, wet thud, and pain. Something has struck your side. A flat piece of wood. A spring-loaded bar. It doesn't matter. Your skin burns. You reach down and feel it. Wet. Sticky. Your fingers come back dark. Blood. You inspect the wound. It's not deep. A glancing strike. It didn't pierce far. But it still bleeds. And in a place like this, even a shallow cut is dangerous. Infection. Weakness. Distraction. All fatal in their own way. You crouch where you are. Press your back to the tunnel wall. Try to breathe. The air is tight. The ceiling low. The wound throbs. You try to decide if you're overreacting or if this is the beginning of something worse. You don't reach a conclusion. You simply move forward because you must. There is debate, you've heard, about how many traps were actually triggered by tunnel rats like you. Some military records claim that most were spotted and avoided. That the casualty numbers were smaller than the fear suggested. But you've also heard that those records were incomplete. That no one really knows how many died down here, unseen and unmourned. What is certain, tunnel rats had some of the highest casualty rates in the war. And most of that risk came from what you're experiencing now. The knowledge that at any moment, something could end you. You keep crawling, you pass another fork in the tunnel. But this time, there's no decision. The left path is caved in, blocked by fallen earth. The right tilts upward. You take it, the incline is steep. It drains you. Each movement burns. Your arms ache. Your legs protest. You had hoped the worst was behind you, but hope is not a tunnel rat's companion. The tunnel doesn't work in straight lines or logic. It exists as a thing that wins and consumes. There is no end. Only the next stretch of darkness. Eventually, you reach a space. A small chamber. The ceiling is low, but at least you can sit. You do, carefully. Around you lie remnants of a life once lived. Straw mats. A rusted bowl. A torn calendar pinned to the wall, its paper curling, its ink faded but still legible. Chinese characters. Red and black numbers. Someone counted days here. Someone marked time. You rest for a moment. Only a moment. The tunnel continues to breathe, and so do you, but every breath is shallower than the last, and you know this is far from over. There are still miles of darkness ahead. It takes longer than you'd like to get moving again. The moments stretch out as you sit hunched in that dim hollow, feeling the sting in your side where the trap got you. The pain is manageable, but constant. A dull throb that reminds you with each breath that you're hurt, that you're vulnerable, that something already tried to kill you and nearly succeeded. You press your hand gently against the wetness seeping through your shirt and feel a sharp jolt that radiates up your ribs. But that's not what's keeping you still. What roots you in place, more than pain, is the quiet horror of adjustment. Your body, somehow, is beginning to settle into the rhythm of this place. Into the heat that never cools. Into the stale air that offers no oxygen, only damp resistance. Into the silence that wraps around everything like a second skin. You feel yourself adapting, and that, more than anything else, terrifies you, because you are not supposed to feel at home down here. You press on, the tunnel contracts again, the ceiling lowering by precious inches, the walls tightening in. You resume your crawl with the reluctant rhythm of someone caught between exhaustion and necessity. Each movement is a labor. Your shoulders scrape damp clay. Your knees drag over hard-packed soil. You feel every stone, every jutting root. The air thickens as you go, like soup left out for too long and beginning to congeal. Breathing becomes more effort than reflex. Your flashlight, though still functioning, is dimmer now. The beam flickers at the edges. You pause and switch it off, hoping to preserve a few more minutes of battery. Immediately, the blackness folds in. No outlines. No gradients. Your eyes adjust to nothing. You raise your hand and wave it in front of your face, but there is no response. You could be 1,000 feet underground or inside your own coffin. The effect is the same. You hold still for 5 seconds. No more. It is long enough. Long enough to feel the full weight of the dark pressing down on you, filling your ears with the sound of your own breath, loud and uneven. When you flick the light back on, the beam feels like a gift from the sun. Weak, flickering, but better than nothing. Much better than nothing. You move forward again, slower now, and then, before the air changes, the smell does. It seeps in gradually, subtle at first, until you cannot ignore it. A coppery tang cuts through the mold and mildew, thick and unmistakable. It carries a hint of iron, like rusted coins soaked in old sweat. But there's something else behind it. Decay. The smell of time having its way with flesh. You stop. You already know what's ahead. You round the curve, and the tunnel opens just enough to fit a curled body. You catch your breath. You were right, it has been there for a long time. Too long. The body is barely recognizable now. Clothes have rotted into the earth, tattered remnants of fabric merging with clay. A helmet, rusted and deformed, sits askew. Skin has given way to bone. You cannot tell which side he fought for. American. Vietnamese. It doesn't matter anymore. You try to look away, but your flashlight has other plans. The beam lingers on the face, or what's left of it. The skull is tilted toward you, its jaw half open, empty sockets staring with permanent blankness. You swallow, and it feels like gravel going down. You crawl past him. Historians still debate what tunnel rats were told before they were sent down. Some say nothing. Some say everything. You suspect the truth lies somewhere between. But no briefing can prepare a man for the way death smells underground. In the tropics, decomposition accelerates. In tunnels with no air circulation, the scent becomes a presence. Something thick and heavy that coats your throat and seeps into your pores. Veterans say it lingered on their skin for days afterward. Some say it never fully left. You breathe through your mouth now, but it doesn't help. The taste still comes. Sour, metallic, and bitter. You want to drink, rinse your tongue, spit, anything. But you don't. Your canteen is low, and what little water remains is for emergencies. You count this as survivable. You round another turn and the tunnel suddenly changes. It opens, not into a room, exactly, but into a space tall enough to crouch, just barely, and wide enough for several people to sit shoulder to shoulder. You blink in surprise. The change is so abrupt that you instinctively raise your light higher. A carved table, built directly into the dirt wall, emerges from the shadows. Its edges are rough but deliberate. Above it, a single kerosene lamp hangs from a protruding hook. It is dark now. Has been for a while. A spider has claimed the space beneath it. On the table, papers rest in uneven stacks. You spot notebooks, hand-drawn maps, pamphlets printed in sharp red and black ink. Propaganda, most likely. Some sheets have been damaged by moisture. The ink has bled across the page, creating streaks that look like tears frozen mid-fall. You don't touch any of it. Instead, you crouch at the edge of the room and listen. No sounds. No movement. No breathing but your own, and then, it hits you. The smell is different here. Still stale, still dry, but without the sharp rot you've come to associate with the rest of the tunnel. This room is cleaner. Not clean, but cleaner. That means someone has used it. Not long ago. Dust has started to settle, but it hasn't built layers. You wonder who sat here. You wonder if they are far or close. You back out without a sound, the tunnel continues downward, and your stomach sinks with the slope. Descending here feels like surrender. You know that gravity is no friend to a man low on strength. Going down means that getting back up will cost you more than you might have left. But there is no other option, you move carefully. The descent stains your hands with damp earth. The clay is slick. You feel your arms tremble as they brace your weight. Your uniform is already soaked, but the dirt finds every crease and clings. A familiar smell returns. Not rot. Something older. Something primal. Sweat, fear, and the scent of bodies that have been here before you. At the bottom, the tunnel levels, but just barely, and then, a tremor, soft. Low. A rumble that rises through your bones. You freeze, palms on the earth, feeling the vibration. It is not your stomach. It is not thunder. The sound comes from the ground itself. A shifting. A reminder, you are not in a story. You are not crawling through metaphor. You are in the lungs of the earth. And they could close at any moment, the walls bead with moisture. Tiny droplets of water glisten in your flashlight, forming trembling constellations along the clay. Your mind begins to shape them into faces. Eyes. Smiles. Mouths. You blink, shake your head. You know it's a trick of the light. You hope it is. Hallucinations can come long before you pass out. This feels too soon, you move faster, another junction, you spot markings on the wall, chalk arrows. 1 points left. You pause. That's rare. Chalk was sometimes used by American tunnel rats to mark safe paths. But these marks don't look American. The script is unfamiliar. The stroke too quick, you ignore it, you've seen enough movies to know where following strange signs leads. The path you choose narrows fast. So fast, in fact, that you are forced to stop and strip your gear pouch from your belt just to squeeze through. The dirt presses into your ribs. You exhale and slide forward. The pressure on your chest increases. You try not to think about the fact that you cannot turn around, panic begins to rise, you suppress it, panic needs space to grow. You don't have space, then your flashlight catches on something odd, a surface too smooth. Too flat. Not tunnel wall. Not natural, you reach out. A door. Covered in clay. Hidden but not locked, you hesitate, then you open it, inside is a chamber that brings you to a halt. It resembles a hospital, or at least what one would look like in a place like this. A bamboo stretcher lies in the center. Dried blood darkens the weave. Rusted surgical tools glint faintly under your light. Scraps of gauze lie scattered. The air is thick with the scent of old wounds and desperation. Someone lived here. Or died here. Or both, you've heard stories. Tales about Viet Cong medics performing surgeries underground using only flashlights and whatever tools were on hand. Bent spoons for extracting bullets. Bicycle chains repurposed for traction. You look at the table. You wonder what they used here. You wonder what happened to the patient. You don't linger, back into the tunnel, your knees are beginning to go numb. That's dangerous. Circulation is life. Without it, your legs will stop obeying you. You shift your weight slightly. It helps. A little, you hear the slosh of your canteen. Almost empty now, you don't drink, you save the water, not for thirst. For traps, sometimes you need to flood a trigger to disable it. You crawl on, another turn. Another curve, then, voices, soft. Distant. Human, you freeze, you flick off your light, and listen, your heart pounds in your ears. The voices are indistinct. Not loud enough to place. Not clear enough to understand. But they are real. Echoes, maybe. Or men. Allies? Enemies? You cannot tell, you wait, the voices fade, no footsteps. No rustle, just silence, you stay still. You stay quiet, then, finally, you breathe again, because in this place, breath is all you have. You move again. Slower now. Not entirely because of the pain, although it lingers with every twist of your torso and drag of your knees. And not entirely because of caution, though that too has woven itself into every muscle, whispering soft warnings that never stop. That persistent wariness is always there, perched behind your ear like a loyal ghost that just wants to keep you alive, but this time, your hesitation runs deeper. You've begun to understand that you are no longer navigating a random collection of cramped hideouts. You've entered something far more elaborate. This isn't just a shelter. It isn't just a military installation carved into the earth. What you've crawled into is an underworld. A living one. A city without sky. You recall hearing bits and pieces about this back at base, probably shared between rounds of lukewarm instant coffee and tired jokes told too late at night. Someone mentioned that the Viet Cong didn't just use the tunnels to hide. They lived here. Truly lived. Slept. Ate. Healed. Planned. Raised children, in some cases. These were not trenches dug for temporary shelter. They were homes, permanent and structured. And now, you are inside them, you pull yourself into another chamber, and it stops you short. This one is surprisingly well organized. The difference is immediate. The floor has been leveled more deliberately. On either side, bunk beds have been carved from the walls. Supported with bamboo beams and raised just enough to stay dry during floods. A strip of cloth hangs between two posts like a curtain. And above, near the ceiling, a small shaft allows air to drift through. You tilt your face toward it, eyes closed. The breeze that touches your cheek is faint, warm, and tinged with smoke and soil. But it moves. After everything else you've inhaled down here, it feels almost sacred, then your eyes catch it. A cooking pot. Sitting near a circular clay stove. You lean in. It's not empty. You reach out, hand hovering just above the rim. Still warm, your heart jumps. The warmth tells you what the room cannot. This place is not abandoned. A small piece of blackened charcoal rests beside the stove. The ashes are fresh. Grains of rice are scattered across the floor, leading out through a narrow crawlspace on the other side of the room. The trail looks careless. Recent. You raise your flashlight and shine it into the tunnel beyond. The light fades quickly, swallowed by distance or curve. You cannot see far. But you don't need to, someone is in here, or was. Very recently, and they were not far ahead. You stay still, ears wide open, listening for breath, for movement, for footsteps. But there's nothing except your own pulse, hammering like footsteps in your skull. There's been ongoing debate about whether American forces ever truly grasped how deep, how broad, how engineered these tunnels were. Some veterans claimed that higher-ups dismissed them as crude trenches, haphazard and unsophisticated. Others insisted there were reports, maps, diagrams that clearly outlined what you're crawling through now. What is not debated is this: every time the Americans uncovered a tunnel system, it was more elaborate than anyone had anticipated. More than anyone had wanted to believe. Some had multiple levels. Layers stacked beneath the jungle like stories in a building. 3, even 4 levels deep, connected by shafts that could barely fit a small adult. Narrow pipes leading down into chambers with no names. You were never claustrophobic before. But imagining a vertical tunnel just wide enough for your body, with only your flashlight for guidance, makes your palms sweat even in this humid dark. You move again. The floor feels different beneath your hands. Firmer. Denser. It has been compressed by countless bodies passing over it. The foot traffic here is frequent. The air changes too. It grows heavier, hotter, humid like a wet towel pressed to your face. You exhale slowly, forcing calm. Every breath now feels like pulling someone else's exhalation into your lungs. Then, something strange, cool air, you feel it before you hear it. A slight breeze, different from the one in the bunk room. Your head tilts without thinking. There it is again, a trace of coolness brushing against your forearm. You track it to the left wall. A narrow opening, no wider than your forearm, interrupts the clay. A slit in the earth. The air leaking out smells faintly metallic. You pause, you know better than to enter, you do anyway, you twist your body sideways, pressing yourself into the gap. The earth brushes your arms and back with indifferent dampness. The walls tighten with each movement, offering no comfort, only passage. A few feet in, the space opens just enough for your shoulders. You shift forward. Your flashlight cuts into the darkness ahead, and then you see them, shelves. Real shelves. Carved directly into the clay. No rough edges, no accidental storage. Purpose-built. Organized. Supplies sit neatly stacked. Boxes of ammunition, sealed cans of food, rolls of cloth bound with string. Documents are arranged carefully, protected in weathered plastic wrap. Some are typed. Others handwritten in neat Vietnamese script. One shelf holds a radio, its antenna bent but intact. Soviet-made. Another holds a battery, no bigger than a lunchbox, wires looped into coils like resting snakes. The scent of metal and oil hovers in the air. This is not a shelter, this is a command post. You realize instantly that this is no longer just reconnaissance. This is intelligence. This is evidence of structure, of planning, of coordination. This space is worth more than just a footnote in a field report. You pause and burn the images into memory, knowing there's no room for a notepad, no time for a camera. If you survive, you'll report it. If not, it may never be found again. You turn to crawl out, and hear it, a sound. Soft. Deliberate, a shift, a scrape, a breath. You whirl around, flashlight snapping toward the noise. The beam cuts across the shelves, the floor, the far wall. Nothing, no one, but the hair on the back of your neck stands up. You know better than to relax. You back out quickly. The walls press tighter as you retreat. Your arms scrape against the clay, but you don't slow down. The narrow tunnel feels suddenly smaller, more threatening. Like a mouth trying to close around you. You emerge back into the main corridor and press yourself flat against the wall. You wait. Listen. Nothing, but your heart refuses to quiet. It drums inside your chest, loud enough that it feels like a beacon. You wonder if anyone else can hear it. You move forward, the tunnel curves again. Moisture glistens on the walls. You pass through a chamber that smells of ash and burnt starch. A kitchen, if it can be called that. There are no ovens, no polished counters. Just clay stoves dug into the earth, with bamboo chimneys rising toward hidden vents. Bamboo funnels for draining water. A pit in the corner designed to trap smoke before it could escape. You know what this is, a smokeless kitchen. You've heard of them. Viet Cong engineers designed them to cook beneath the jungle without revealing a trace. The smoke was funneled through narrow passages filled with layers of leaves and ash, until it dispersed invisibly through hidden exits. Some of those exits were carved through termite mounds. You look for one, just out of habit, and almost laugh at the absurd genius of it. Camouflage through nature, in the corner, a pile of dried sweet potatoes lies heaped in a basket. Some are covered in mold. But some still look fresh. This is not a relic, it is a working kitchen. You retreat again, slow and deliberate. You leave nothing disturbed, you crawl onward into what feels like a hallway. That's what your mind calls it, anyway. A wide, straight passage, tall enough to crawl comfortably without scraping your back. That, down here, feels like luxury. The walls have been smoothed by countless hands. In some places, bamboo lattice has been pressed into the clay for reinforcement. You spot a wooden sign nailed into the wall. The characters are Vietnamese. You can't read them, but the tone is clear, a warning. A rule. Probably both. You don't stop. Eventually, the tunnel tightens again. The walls close in. And with them, the atmosphere changes. Not in scent. Not in temperature, in emotion. You feel it before you see it, and then, it comes into view, a shrine. Small. Tucked into a recessed alcove, carved neatly into the clay. A tiny statue rests on a raised platform. Incense sticks, long burned to ash, lean gently in a ceramic holder. Beside them, a chipped dish holds dried fruit, or what remains of it. You pause, there is reverence in the air here. It feels wrong to rush past. Even now, even in this crawlspace under the earth, some things still demand respect. You press your fingers together. Not quite a salute. Not quite a prayer. A gesture that sits somewhere in between. You keep moving, and by now, you know the truth. You have gone too far to turn back. You could not retrace your path if you wanted to. The tunnels behind you are a tangle. You left no markings. No breadcrumbs. No way home. You are committed, and something in the silence around you feels aware of that. The tunnel knows. You haven't spoken in hours. Not a whisper. Not a mutter. Not even a quiet curse. Down here, silence is your last currency, and you know exactly how quickly you can lose it. Every word, every sound, would bounce off these wet, pressed walls and travel like a flare in the dark. Ears are always listening down here. You just don't know whose. So instead, your words stay buried somewhere behind your teeth, and what remains are your thoughts, growing louder with each passing footstep. Louder and louder, until your own mind becomes the most talkative thing in the tunnel. Your revolver, once a reassuring presence, has become heavier with every passing hour. It drags at your wrist. The metal is no longer just warm from your skin. It's slick with moisture, a mix of your sweat and the tunnel's permanent dampness. The handle feels greasy. The trigger feels distant. This isn't the weapon of a soldier anymore. It's the lifeline of a desperate man. You glance at your flashlight. The lens has dimmed again. The edges of the beam are blurred and jaundiced, smeared in a yellow haze that warns you how little time remains. You flick it lightly with your thumb. The light trembles, flickers, then steadies for now. You consider switching it off to conserve power, but the darkness waiting behind that decision is too complete. Too patient. You leave it on. Not out of courage. Out of fear. Your gear is a joke. Laughable, if the situation weren't so grim. No armor. No communication. No GPS. No night vision. You are alone. Your revolver, standard issue .45, is a beast in the open but a nightmare in enclosed spaces. Firing it here would be like shouting into a megaphone held against your ear. Some tunnel rats preferred the .38 for its quieter pop and softer recoil. Others carried nothing at all. Just a knife. Or a club. One story floated around base of a guy who went in with only a carpenter's hammer. Not tactical. Not designed for combat. Just a hammer from a toolbox. No one could say for sure whether he ever made it back. Ahead, the tunnel tightens again. You already know what's coming. You flatten your body until your ribs are pressed into the floor. Your arms stretch forward, elbows scraping, fingers clawing at the clay. There is no crawling here. You drag yourself by your fingertips, pulling inch by inch through a throat of the earth. The ceiling lowers so much that you can feel your shoulder blades scrape the roof. The space beneath you is wet, not puddled but sticky. A film of filth coats the floor. You pull through it, every movement slow and straining. The air turns foul. Not just stale, but sharp with the taste of things left to rot. You breathe shallowly. Through your mouth, trying not to gag. It tastes like metal and mildew, gunpowder and mold. A kind of rot that has had too long to settle in. Every breath you take feels like an insult to your lungs. Historians debate which was worse for tunnel rats, the physical threat or the psychological one. The blades, the booby traps, the collapses. Or the silence, the dread, the buried hours in darkness. Some men came out screaming, wild-eyed and soaked in their own sweat, clawing at their clothes like insects were crawling beneath their skin. Others returned mute, hollow, staring through the walls of their tents for days. A few never went in again. And no one blamed them. You don't know which outcome is worse. Eventually, your fingers grasp onto slightly firmer ground. You pull yourself clear of the choke point and collapse into a hunched kneel. It feels like surfacing from a swamp. Your back pops. Your shoulder stings. Your neck aches from being tilted at an unnatural angle for too long. The beam of your flashlight swings wildly across the chamber as your hand trembles. You steady it. Slowly. Eventually. This space is different. It is larger than the others. It opens wider, and your body is thankful. The air is no better, but at least it isn't pressing down on you. You shine your light upward. The ceiling is scorched, blackened with soot. The bamboo strips supporting it are burned in places, darkened to charcoal, but still intact. Someone lit a fire here. Not long ago. Maybe for warmth. Maybe for light. Maybe to flush someone out, like you. You sweep the beam across the floor. Your eyes catch supplies tucked into corners. A folded blanket. A sleeping mat made of coarse fibers. A pair of boot prints, sharp in the dirt. You pause. These are not yours, and they lead deeper in. You know what the smart thing is. You know what a report would recommend. Turn back. Regroup. Mark the path. Request extraction, but you also know how those stories end. You'll return to base. You'll be met with confusion. A shrug. A reminder that someone else will have to go in later. Maybe a question about why you didn't press forward, so you follow the prints. The tunnel dips again, as it always does. Downward. You're starting to feel like it never actually goes up. Only down. Always down. You think of old stories. Of underworlds. Of descending into the earth not to explore, but to pay a price. You think of Dante. Of circles. Of sinners punished in stages. You wonder what kind of sin qualifies as crawling toward hell in a sweat-soaked uniform. The air shifts again. But this time, the change is different, a smell, chemical. Sharp. Oily, you know it instantly. Gun oil. Fresh. Someone cleaned a weapon nearby. Which means they intend to use it. You slow your crawl. Your breath shallows. The tunnel offers no sound. No rustling wind. No distant echo. The only light is yours, the only noise your own quiet scrape along the ground. Then it happens, a click, quiet. Deliberate. Mechanical, the unmistakable sound of metal locking into place, a round being chambered, but it does not come from ahead of you. It comes from behind, your body freezes. Your mind splits in two. One half screams for you to run, but there is no room to run. The other half tells you to wait, to listen. You do both. You freeze. You breathe once. Twice, silence, no footsteps, no breath. You turn, as best you can, you pivot your torso, one elbow at a time, twisting your shoulders to allow the flashlight to follow your revolver. The beam stutters. It always does when you need it most. It shakes, bouncing along the walls. You search for movement, there is none. You breathe out, too soon, something moves in your periphery. You whip back, fast, gun raised, and fire. The explosion is immediate. The sound doesn't travel far. It slams into the walls and rebounds like shrapnel. Your ears scream. Your balance disappears. The world tilts. The light stutters again. Nothing, no body, no blood, no confirmation. Did you hit something, or were you just afraid of the dark? You move forward. Faster now. Not out of strategy, but survival. Your nerves are frayed. Your hands shake. The revolver feels heavier. The doubt inside you is worse than the fear. You cannot be sure what is real. You stumble into another chamber. This one is clean. Empty, except for three things: a wooden chair, a radio, a small black notebook. You approach the notebook. Open it. The pages are filled with neat, slanted writing. Vietnamese. You can't read it. But near the middle, a sketch. A tunnel map. Lines crisscrossing in all directions. Some you recognize. Most you don't. This isn't your tunnel. This is part of something bigger, much bigger. You stare. You understand. What you've seen so far is only a finger. A single branch of a vast network that coils beneath the jungle like veins beneath skin. A city with no sky. A fortress of earth and silence. You slide the notebook into your pouch. The flashlight dims again. You ignore it. A random memory rises. Some tunnel rats carried candles. Not for light, but for life. If the flame burned clean, the air was safe. If it flickered, there might be gas. If it went out, the air was already gone. Primitive, but effective. You wish you had one now. You crouch against the wall. Just for a moment. To collect yourself. To remember how to breathe. The rush of adrenaline fades like smoke. In its place comes a different force. Exhaustion, not the kind that comes from work, the kind that sets into the bones, the kind that turns muscle to lead, the kind that whispers quietly, telling you the tunnel might win, but you do not stop, because down here, there is no pause, and stopping is not an option. You press forward, though it doesn't feel like progress anymore. The idea of direction has unraveled. Forward is just the illusion you cling to. The tunnel bends at its own will, veering suddenly, branching without warning, and sometimes stopping cold in a dead end that feels personal. Like the tunnel itself forgot you were here. Or remembered and decided you shouldn't be. You no longer have any sense of depth or location. You could be 20 feet below the jungle floor or 200. Maybe you're beneath a peaceful rice field. Maybe a school. Maybe a command bunker. There is no map. No compass. No sky. The only truth is this: you are not where you started. You haul yourself through a new passage. Narrow enough that your chin could rest on the floor if you gave up and tried to sleep. You're tempted. Sleep sounds soft. Final. Your body is giving in slowly. Limbs are heavy. Your fingers feel swollen. Your thoughts arrive out of order. You forget where you meant to put your next hand until it's already been placed. Your shoulders ache with every shift. Your knees are bruised. Your mouth is dry, cracked, chalky. You are unspooling in slow motion, then, a sound, a different one, drip, drip, you pause, water, not static. Not random. A regular rhythm, like a metronome hidden in the dark. You follow the noise. You round a bend in the tunnel and find its source, a vertical shaft opens beside you. Like a well carved into the clay. It's narrow, just wide enough to lower a body or raise a bucket. The bottom holds only a shallow puddle, murky and still, but the air here changes. It cools. Just slightly. The dampness is cleaner. Not fresh, but less oppressive. Ropes, or maybe vines, are looped around bamboo pegs hammered into the shaft walls. Crude rungs. Someone built this. Recently. You shine your flashlight upward and for a moment you see something that jolts your pulse, a sliver of light. Pale. Soft, is it the sky? You stare harder. No. Just an illusion. A trick played by your starving brain and your failing flashlight. Wishful thinking in beam form, but still, this is the first vertical tunnel you've seen. A real one. Not just theory. You reach out and test the nearest peg. It bends slightly but holds. It's damp. It slips against your palm, but it feels solid enough to climb. You consider it, then a sound starts, buzzing. At first it's faint. Just the hint of vibration in the air. Then it grows. Louder. Denser. Not mechanical, insects, mosquitoes, not a few. A cloud. You hear them before you see them. Their wings churn the air above the puddle like a storm of needles. This pool is their nursery. You recoil instantly. Batting at your neck, your ears, your forearms. Even underground, they find you. Persistent. Aggressive. Probably immune to bug spray. Probably immune to the Geneva Convention. You duck away, heart racing. You crawl faster, not because of fear, but because of disgust. Because you suddenly itch everywhere and nowhere at once. There's a rumor, maybe a myth, that some tunnel rats wrap their arms in pantyhose to block the bites. Not standard issue, but practical. It worked, supposedly. You wish you had a pair now. Instead, you're stuck with your uniform. Government-issued sleeves made from a fabric that feels like it was designed to trap heat and spread suffering. You move on and the tunnel curves again. A new scent greets you, cooking oil. Your stomach tightens, but not from hunger. It's recognition. Memory. Something from before the jungle. Something domestic. You shine your light ahead and find the source, a cooking chamber, this one's still intact. Smoke funnels spiral upward through channels carved into the ceiling. Blackened pots rest in the corners, their surfaces mottled with soot. On the floor, a single clay bowl. Inside it, curled and still, a tiny crab. Cooked whole. Its shell dulled from heat, a meal, or maybe something else. You crouch lower, but your instincts flare. Could be someone's lunch. Could be bait. Could be both. You back out slowly. Historians still debate whether psychological warfare ever made it into the tunnels in subtle ways. Not just the booby traps meant to maim, but the objects left behind with deliberate intent. A child's shoe. A broken teacup. A family photo. Things meant to remind you this wasn't only a battlefield. It was someone's neighborhood. Their living room. Their life. Whether these items were left behind by accident or design, they work. You are unsettled. Not just as a soldier. As a human, you crawl again, and something changes. The walls seem to move, pulse. No, that's your vision. You blink rapidly. Rub your eyes with the heel of your palm. Your flashlight beam flickers, trails off-center, swims in your peripheral vision. The tunnel dances, then settles, the edges of your sight are fraying. Like the world is softening. Blurring. You know the signs: dehydration, heat exhaustion, maybe worse, you stop. You have to. But the tunnel doesn't. It feels like it keeps moving even when you're still. Like it's pressing down on you. Slowly. Gently. Like a blanket tucking you in for a sleep you didn't ask for. You take a sip from your canteen, a drop, maybe two, it tastes metallic. Could be the water. Could be your own mouth turning against you. You wonder how long it's been since you had a full swallow. You try to slow your breathing. To ration your oxygen like it's a resource you can control. It feels ridiculous, but it's real. Some tunnels had ventilation systems, genius little shafts disguised as anthills or bamboo stalks. But not all. Some chambers were dug just for hiding. Not for staying. Not for breathing. You might be in one of those now, then something new, light, a flicker, not yours, a candle, you freeze. It's small, nearly burned down to the base, the flame no bigger than a thumbnail. It sits on a flat rock, casting shadows that twitch in the motionless air. You never expected to see fire down here. But here it is. Alive. Dancing, you do not touch it, you listen, no footsteps, but the flame is warm, which means someone was here. Minutes ago, maybe seconds, you move past the candle, the chamber opens, inside, nothing, no soldiers. No threat, just straw mats. A few papers scattered on the ground. A pair of worn slippers, soles cracked and bent with use, and then a sound, a breath, not yours, to the right, you spin, heart thudding, the flashlight beam sweeps across the room. Empty, but the breath was real, you know it was. You felt it more than you heard it. A shift in pressure. A disturbance. And now you see something else, a mirror, cracked, hanging on the wall. You hadn't noticed it before. Your reflection jumps out at you. Pale. Sunken. Dirt-streaked and wide-eyed. You barely recognize yourself. You wonder how long it's been since anyone looked at you from the outside. You sit, trying to make sense of it. Trying not to let the flicker of imagination become fear. But the tunnel isn't helping. It feels denser now. Heavier. The dark is closing in, not in volume, but in intent. Every sound feels quieter. Not because you're being stealthier, but because the tunnel itself has decided to hush you. As if it prefers silence. As if it's trying to make you part of itself. You remember something one of the guys said back at camp. He told a story about crawling through a tunnel so tight, so long, that when he finally came out, he couldn't speak for 2 days. Not because he was traumatized, because he forgot how. You believe him now. You crawl forward again, and you stop, a wall, solid, no passage, but strange, painted. You blink, not a wall, a mural. Figures drawn in long red strokes. Soldiers. Helicopters. Rifles. Explosions. A war told in symbols, smeared across clay like ancient cave art. A story scratched into the bones of the earth. It's not a message to you, it's a record for them. You reach out, touch the dirt beside the drawing. It's warm, so are you. Too warm, your pulse is climbing. Your breath is shortening, you know the signs. No air, again, you have to move, now, you crawl fast. Faster than before. Hands dig into the soil like claws. You don't care about stealth. You don't care about protocol. You care about breathing. You care about light. You see something, a glint, a breeze, you follow it, the tunnel opens. Another shaft, you scramble up, fingers grip roots, clay, anything. You claw upward. Your head breaks the surface, leaves part, sky, real sky, blue and blinding, you collapse into the jungle. Your chest heaves. Your skin is soaked. Your eyes squint like they've never known daylight, and maybe they haven't, not really. You lie there, and you know, this won't be the last time, they'll send you again, and the tunnel, it never forgets who's been inside. You lie flat in the underbrush, chest heaving, lungs raw from hours of shallow, recycled breath. Each inhale feels like it scrapes against the inside of your ribs. Dirt cakes your face, clings to your lips, grits between your teeth like crushed stone. The jungle light stabs your eyes after so long underground. You blink, slowly, adjusting to brightness that feels too wide, too loud. The leaves above shift with the breeze, their rustle unfamiliar after the suffocating silence of the tunnel. A bird calls out. The chirp is sharp, clean, unthreatening. Something in the nearby brush rustles and your body instinctively tightens, but nothing follows. For a brief moment, it almost feels like you've returned to the real world. The one with wind. The one with sky, you are out, but you don't feel free. The tunnel clings to your thoughts like a wet cloth wrapped tight around your skull. You can still feel it against your back, your shoulders, your neck. You're no longer crawling, but your spine doesn't know that yet. Your muscles remain braced, ready to duck or twist or flinch. Your body might have made it out, but your mind has not followed. It stayed below, curled into the dirt. You shift, slowly, rolling onto your side. Then you sit. Your entire body protests the movement. Your knees tremble. Your back aches. Your arms shake. You look down. Your shirt is crusted with blood, dry now, faded to rust, clinging to your skin like war paint. Beneath it, your body is a map of minor wounds, cuts, scratches, bruises, salt and soil soaked into every pore. You reach for your canteen before you remember. Empty. Bone dry. You lick your lips. Your tongue finds nothing but salt. You're alone. No escort team. No medic. No radio. That's how it works with tunnel operations. Solo entry. Solo exit. Fast in, fast out. At least, that's the idea. But nothing about the tunnel is ever fast. Nothing is ever clean. You squint toward the trees. Try to orient yourself. The jungle here is familiar but not welcoming. You scan the underbrush, searching for a landmark. Then you see it, half buried in the soil, partially covered in leaves. An old ammo box, spray-painted bright orange. A signal. A marker your team placed. The drop-in zone is nearby. Maybe 100 yards. Maybe less. But it feels like another world away. You stand, slowly. Every joint creaks. Your knees buckle slightly. The jungle floor shifts beneath your boots, too open, too soft, too vertical. You've spent too long horizontal, chest to dirt, belly dragging like a lizard. Now, upright, you feel unbalanced. Every step is cautious. Every branch snap makes your shoulders jerk. A spider web brushes your cheek. You don't even flinch. After what you've just come from, nothing up here can frighten you anymore. Eventually, you reach the outpost. 2 soldiers are sitting in the shade of a tarp. One is eating something out of a dented can. The other is flipping playing cards onto a rock, bored but focused. They glance up as you approach. Back already? One of them asks, raising an eyebrow. You don't answer. The one with the card smirks. You look like you crawled through hell. You kind of did. You drop into a crouch. Someone hands you a canteen. You take it without thanks. The water goes down too fast. You cough. Your head spins. You blink, steady yourself. You feel the weight of their stares, but no one says anything else. another man approaches. Not part of your squad. Maybe intelligence. Maybe just curious, find anything. You nod. Once. The motion feels mechanical. Your eyes don't meet his, he presses. Anything important? You want to say yes. You want to describe the hidden room, the fresh footprints, the improvised maps, the eerie quiet. You want to say you found another war happening just beneath this one. A war inside the war. Layers deep. But your mouth won't form the words. Instead, you say, no movement. Empty. He frowns, then shrugs. Moves on. Historians later debated whether tunnel rats were truly trusted. Some say commanders considered their reports exaggerated. Others say they were ignored entirely, not out of disbelief, but because the truth was too messy. Too visceral. Easier to disregard what they couldn't see. Easier to pretend that what happened below didn't exist. Most tunnel rat testimonies never left the perimeter tents. That night, you clean your gear, each motion is slow. Deliberate. Robotic, the flashlight is cracked. The lens fogged with dirt. The bulb weak. It will need replacing. Your revolver is coated in fine grit, the barrel choked. The chamber grinding with every spin. You take it apart twice. You don't speak while you clean. You don't think either, you try to sleep, the cot is too open. Too horizontal. It feels unsafe. Like it leaves your back exposed. So you flip it against the wall. Curl up in the corner instead. Knees drawn. Elbows tucked. The way you were in the tunnel. Muscle memory doesn't know how to turn off. A few hours later, the order comes through, new tunnel entrance found. 15 kilometers east. A recon team is needed, they're looking for someone small, you already know who that means, you don't argue. Don't even frown, because no one else volunteers, and once you've been down once. They assume you know how to go again. The next morning, you board the chopper. The blades churn the air. The wind buffets your face. The jungle rushes below. You do not look out the window. You sit with your gear in your lap, motionless, quiet, eyes unfocused. The helicopter lands near a patch of scrub trees. You jump out. March with the others through undergrowth that feels thicker than yesterday. Another sight. Another entrance, this one is smaller, almost hidden. It waits beneath a rotting chicken coop. A clever disguise. The wood panels disguise scent and noise. The chickens mask traffic. No one would question footsteps there. You crouch beside the hole, your sergeant places a hand on your shoulder, same drill. Quick survey. Mark what you can. Get out, you nod, you no longer feel your legs. Only habit. Only routine, your flashlight is new, your revolver is not, you slide into the dark, and it starts again, the tunnel greets you like a familiar hand on the back of your neck. The air is thicker. The walls closer. It feels angry, somehow. Like it remembers you. Like it knows you escaped and doesn't intend to let that happen again. You crawl, no room to turn. No room to kneel. Just elbows and knees. Forward only, the first stretch is quiet, then you hear it, a whisper, might be your breath. Might not be, you ignore it, then a smell, oil. Again, and something else, something sweeter, meat, you keep crawling, you reach a chamber. Lit by a battery-powered lamp. Its glow is soft. Steady. Warm, you scan the floor, footprints, fresh, still holding heat, the war isn't past, it is present, alive. Historians would later write that some tunnel missions overlapped with Viet Cong activity by minutes. Not hours. Not days. Just minutes. Like walking into the same room from two different doors. Some soldiers reported feeling breath on their necks. Hearing footsteps just out of view. Never seeing anyone. Just the impression of presence. A ghost made of muscle and mud. The tunnel shifts again, its structure changes, the walls are reinforced with wooden beams. The floor is leveled with planks. Someone built this with care. Time. Intention, and then, just like before, you lose your bearings, no signs, no arrows, no turns, only earth, and the quiet, terrible truth, the tunnel has no ending. It only offers exhaustion, you run out of flashlight, or air, or courage, and you stop, unless you don't, unless, like now, you keep moving, because you have to, because no one else will, because somewhere, in your bones, in your brain, you're no longer sure where the real war is, up there in the sun, or down here in the dirt. The tunnel grows meaner. It narrows with every passing foot, no longer merely confining but actively resisting your progress. It ceases to feel like a space you are moving through. Instead, it becomes something closer to a punishment, deliberate, slow, almost personal. Crawling gives way to something more desperate. You are not so much moving as you are compressing yourself into the shape of endurance. Your elbows press in tight against your sides. Your chin tucks low, neck aching from the unnatural angle. Your hips drag with a friction that feels heavier than bone and flesh should allow. Each inch forward brings a question, low and rhythmic inside your skull like a drumbeat. Why am I still doing this? The answer is tired. Familiar, always the same. Because someone has to, your flashlight slices through the dark ahead. The beam used to be sharp, wide, confident. Now it seems smaller, softer around the edges. Dimmer. The battery has started its old game again, pretending to die, faltering just enough to rattle your nerves, to make you think the next breath might come without light. It is a cruel game. And it is working. You find yourself shaking the handle just to see the glow stabilize, just to reassure yourself that you are not alone in here, the air has changed too. You taste it before you smell it, like a warning delivered by the tongue. There is something rotten riding on the air now. It is faint. But undeniable. You pause. Sniff once. Could be a rat, long dead and fermenting beneath some unseen corner. Could be something else entirely. In these tunnels, there is no clear line between animal decay and human remains. The stench does not always explain itself. Your nose can never be entirely certain where the boundary lies. And that uncertainty gnaws at the edges of your thoughts. You do not look for the source. You do not want to know. You keep moving forward. The texture beneath you shifts. The ground no longer feels like packed earth or clay. It is stickier now. Your hands glide through something that offers resistance, but not the familiar kind. This is not mud. It does not cling in the same way. It coats instead, and clings to your palms like syrup left too long in the open. You do not investigate. You do not look down. Curiosity is a luxury that costs too much in this place. You press onward, palms gliding, knees pushing. Your body adapts as it always does. That is what makes this place so lethal. Not the presence of snakes. Not even the traps. It is the way your instincts learn to accept what should never be normal. Overhead, a wooden beam crosses the ceiling. It is thick, reinforced, wedged into place with care. Someone built this section with purpose. Someone cared about its stability. You pass beneath it with a flicker of gratitude, even if it is an illusion. Stability, even the imagined kind, is rare down here, and then your elbow catches on something. Thunk, you freeze, you inch back and feel again. A wire? No, too solid. You follow it by touch, a pipe, it runs across the tunnel, thick and cold. But this is not a water line. You can tell from the slight chemical sting in the air. Gas. Maybe propane. Maybe something improvised. You press your ear against it and listen. Faint vibrations pulse through the metal. You cannot identify their origin. But the pipe is active. That much is certain. Some tunnels were equipped with ventilation systems powered by bicycle pedals or hand-cranked fans. Others transported messages or small supply bundles. The ingenuity born of desperation could be astonishing. You believe it now more than ever. You ease past it slowly, limbs cautious, breathing shallow. You try not to think about what would happen if the pipe cracked or if a valve somewhere failed. You move forward because that is the only direction left. The tunnel widens. Slightly at first. Then more. You emerge into a chamber that is lower than you expected, with water seeping from the walls and pooling in uneven patches on the ground. The air feels thick here, heavy with mildew and something else, paper. You see it scattered everywhere. Leaflets. Pages. You brush one aside and freeze. English. A U.S. Army field manual. It stares up at you like a ghost. You scan the room quickly, finding more documents, most of them marked with Vietnamese script. But this one was captured. Its pages are folded, underlined. Annotated. Someone studied you. Some historians argue the Viet Cong intercepted thousands of American documents, turning those pages into blueprints for their own tactics. Veterans tell stories of ambushes so well timed they must have been planned with insider knowledge. Some insist it was skill. Others say it was luck. But here you are, staring down the evidence, your own strategy turned against you. And it is marked in ink. They read this. They studied this. And they adapted. You slide the manual into your pack, the tunnel turns sharply again. As if it has changed its mind about you. It pitches downward without warning. Your weight shifts. You slip. The descent is steep and fast. 6 feet of mud and gravity. You land with a hard jolt. Your knees crack against the earth. Your flashlight bounces once in your grip but does not fall. You look around quickly. Breath-catching, this room is large. Unnaturally large. That is your first thought. It was not carved for speed or secrecy. It was made to accommodate people. To hold them. The ceiling is high enough to let you kneel without scraping your back. The walls are rounded. Finished, your light scans the interior. Rows of bamboo benches line the edges. At the far end, a cracked chalkboard leans against the wall, faint diagrams still clinging to its surface. Arrows. Movement paths. A calendar, marked with dates that have been crossed out. This was a command post, a place of planning. Your light catches on something else, a teacup. Porcelain. Still half full. A drop slides down the rim, as if disturbed moments before. You freeze, your body locks in place. Someone was here. Recently. Maybe they still are. You scan the chamber again. 2 tunnels branch off ahead. Both narrow. Neither can be watched at the same time. You strain your ears. Nothing. Not even the rustling of rats. The silence deepens, your heart thuds hard once, then again, you crouch low and shift toward the left tunnel. Instinct guides you now, not reason. The passage is tighter. The air colder. Your flashlight flickers again, taunting you. You give it a sharp tap. It steadies. For now, you crawl, and then, a glow, faint. Unnatural. Blue, you reach a bend in the wall. Slowly, you peek around the edge, a generator, small. Boxy. Soviet built. It is quiet. Not running. But wired. Cables snake upward into the ceiling, disappearing into hidden pathways. You cannot say where the power goes. But it goes somewhere. Underground hospitals. Communication rooms. Printing presses. All were rumored. All were doubted. But now, staring at this generator, you believe it all. The tunnels were not only shelters. They were cities below the earth. You begin to back away, your light sweeps across the wall and catches a shape. At first, you think it is your reflection in a polished surface. A trick of light, but it is not, it is a face, your face. Then it moves, you fire, the gunshot shatters the silence, the flash searing your vision. Your ears ring violently. The report echoes again and again, bouncing off clay like thunder trapped in a bottle. Then, nothing, stillness. You blink, scan the area, no one, no movement. Did you imagine it? There is no time to wonder, you retreat. Your breathing breaks apart into fragments. Your body feels boneless, trembling. Every inch of you is soaked in clay, in sweat, and in something else, the residue of fear, old and borrowed. You move back through the command room. You claw your way up the slope, hands digging into roots and wet soil, back into the tunnel, and then, the sound, footsteps, not yours, close. You move, not walking. Not crawling. Something in between. The flashlight swings, sending shadows careening across the walls. They twist and stretch, more like monsters than outlines. You do not look behind you. You reach the shaft, the one you fell through. You climb, hand over hand, silence behind you. But not comfort. You no longer care who hears. Up, a hatch, light, sunlight pierces the tunnel like a blade. You shove it open. You spill out into the jungle, tangled in vines and gasping for breath. You do not know where you are. It does not matter. The air smells clean. Sweet. Rich with leaves and rot and life. Even the insects feel like friends. You lie still, chest rising in ragged bursts, eyes locked open, ears searching. No footsteps. Not yet. But you know they are there, waiting. The tunnel does not end. It only waits in silence, until you return. You're beginning to wonder if something inside you has started to change. Not just physically, but in some deeper, quieter way you can't quite name. Like the tunnels have planted hooks under your skin, small and sharp and invisible. Not enough to tear you open. Just enough to pull. Because here you are again, belly flattened to the dirt, shoulders hunched tight, flashlight clutched in your right hand like a prayer. You're back inside. Back in the maze, you told yourself last time would be the last. You had said it out loud, even. Enough. No more. Let someone else crawl through the belly of the earth. Let someone else feel the silence press against their eardrums. You were going to sit outside. Drink bad coffee, and write reports. Reports about other men doing this. That was the plan, but the call came, and you answered. Now sweat is soaking through your undershirt. The tunnel squeezes your ribcage like a fist. Every breath feels rationed. The air barely moves. The space is too narrow to exhale fully. Too narrow to turn your head. Too narrow to think straight. The mission is simple. It always is. Confirm a new junction in the Eastern Network. See if it connects to the CU-Chi system. Plant navigational markers. Return, that last part, return. You don't trust it anymore. The first 30 feet are oddly smooth. Suspiciously smooth. No puddles, no turns, no debris. The walls are clean. The ceiling has been shaved with precision. Either this section is brand new or someone came through and cleaned it recently. You're not sure which possibility you dislike more. You arrive at a chamber. It is the size of a coffin turned on its side. Just enough room to kneel. You stop. Your knees press into the packed dirt. You allow yourself to breathe, just for a moment. The air tastes like heat and clay. You let it settle in your chest. It sits there, thick and slow, then your eyes catch something on the wall, words. Etched into the clay, carved deep and uneven, like whoever did it was rushed, or shaking. It's not in Vietnamese. It's in English. Large block letters, still here. You stare at it. Not for seconds, but minutes. Historians later argued about graffiti in the tunnels. Some said it was a way for soldiers to leave signals for each other. A coded breadcrumb trail. Others believed it was madness escaping through the fingertips. Desperation made solid in the clay. You don't know which camp you belong to. All you know is that someone else came through this place and needed the tunnel to know they had existed. You press on, the tunnel slopes again. You don't argue with it. You don't have the energy. You let the decline carry you, limbs moving more from habit than will. Your flashlight guides the way, its beam narrower now, less confident. But it still works. The next chamber is strange, chalk marks on the walls. Drawings. Crude, childlike. A stick figure jungle, palm trees scribbled with shaky lines, cartoon helicopters. Little bombs explode in comic-style speech bubbles. Boom. Crack. A tiger, or maybe a dog, with square teeth and big eyes. You cannot tell who made this, a child hiding underground, a soldier who cracked a little too far. You sit and look at it. Let it speak to you. You feel something shift in your chest. There was a story told once. A tunnel rat claimed he found a clay chessboard on the ground. The pieces were carved by hand. Someone else said they found a harmonica hanging from a nail, just waiting for a mouth. These weren't monsters, they said. These were men. Men who were waiting. Bored. Alive. You snap out of it, a sound, movement, not yours, you're sure of it. Not your elbow. Not your flashlight. Not a drip of water. Something shifted. You turn off your light, press your ear to the dirt, silence, then, shuffling. Slow. Purposeful. You've stood at this edge before. Maybe not in this tunnel. But in this moment. This is the choice. The one that splits everything, move forward, and risk ambush, retreat, and lose the intel. You go forward. Tunnel rats only believe in one direction. You reach a junction. You choose the left path. It slopes and narrows. The air turns bitter. You smell chemicals. Old. Sharp. Gunpowder. Maybe something industrial. Your senses sharpen. You scan the floor. Your beam finds something, not a wire, not a tripline, bones, small. Scattered, animal, probably, then something else, a boot, size 10, too clean to have been there long, no laces. No foot, you tilt the flashlight upward. No body, nothing, just a boot, alone in the dirt. You crawl faster. The tunnel twists now, more erratic, more impatient. It's like it doesn't want you to know where you are. You scratch a mark into the wall with your knife. A quick tick. Then another at the next turn. You do this now. You've learned to track your own steps. The tunnel doesn't like to give them back. Your flashlight picks up a glint. You freeze. Mirror, no, eyes, two of them, watching, reflecting. You raise the revolver. Hold your breath, silence. The eyes blink, then vanish. You crawl forward, breath held tight in your chest. You reach the spot. Nothing, no footprints. No person. Just a disturbance. A patch of dirt brushed wrong. You are not alone. You press forward, another 20 feet. You find a cooking station, crude. But recent. The stove is cold, but not old. A metal spoon sits on the edge of a clay bowl. Balanced. As if someone was eating. Or just finished. You lean closer, there's rice inside, still warm, your head snaps back. Expecting something. A trap. A shout. A figure, nothing, you move forward, slow. Careful, you see a pack tucked in the corner. Camouflaged. Small, you reach for it. Unbuckle the flap, inside, documents. A photo. Rations. A map. You spread it open. Pencil lines. Faded but clear. A network. Tunnels. Some marked with circles. Others with loops. You recognize village names. Perimeters. There's a line that runs under the area you dropped in from. You're not just in a tunnel, you're in a node, a nexus point. You fold the map. Slide it into your vest, then your hands feel something, a tremble, the earth shivers beneath your palms. A subtle vibration. A heartbeat in the dirt, you hold still, it could be a detonation. Controlled. Distant, or someone just sprinted past a tunnel wall close enough to shake the floor. You do not wait, you turn, retrace, fast, your chalk marks lead you, left, then up. Right, you pass the "still here" chamber, the words are different now, they feel like they are speaking to you, you do not stop, the walls close again. Tighter. Familiar, up ahead, a light, filtered. Thin, but real, you push through the final stretch, you break the surface, the canopy above filters sunlight in broken beams, midday, you stumble into it, the air is loud again, birdsong, insects, heat, it feels like a different planet, you fall back against a tree, your chest rises. Falls, your hands shake, but the map is in your vest, and already, your thoughts are shifting, because maps are not enough, not here, you don't just need to know where the tunnel starts. You have to know where it goes, because in this war, the truth isn't overhead, it lives below. Back in the open air, the world feels too large. Everything is stretched and swollen. The sky looms like a ceiling you forgot existed, painted in impossible shades of blue. The clouds drift so lazily it feels insulting. Trees sway with the kind of ease that makes you uneasy. Their leaves flutter with no urgency, no warning. And the wind, once a small blessing, now feels like a trick. It moves too suddenly. It carries scents that change by the second. It makes shadows dance where there should be none, you crouch instinctively, as if the open air itself is a threat. Your knees settle into the dirt beneath the nearest bush. You reach for a ration bar, peeling it with hands that still remember the feel of the tunnel walls. You chew slowly. The bar is dry, almost painfully so. It breaks apart like bark in your mouth. You do not care. It is food. That is enough. Your stomach long ago stopped caring about taste. Now it only wants fuel. You take a long pull from the new canteen. The water is cool, metallic, and startling. It pours into your core like rain soaking parched ground. For a moment, you feel human again, then you remember the map, you pull it out, unfolding it carefully like it's a sacred thing. You spread it over your lap, smoothing the corners. The lines etched onto the page are simple, but deliberate. There is no panic in the penmanship. No hesitation. Whoever drew this did so with a calm hand. The tunnel routes arc out from the center like ribs. One path curves sharply under a nearby hill and ends with a symbol. A triangle drawn inside a circle, you do not know what it means. But it means something. That much is certain, that night, you bring the map to your commanding officer. You slide it across the table in a dimly lit tent. He studies it briefly, eyebrows drawn together. His eyes linger on the symbol. Then he leans back, says something that sounds like acknowledgement but tastes like dismissal. We'll pass it up the chain. You know what that means. It means no one will look. It means no one wants to know. It means you are on your own, so the next morning, you volunteer, you do not fully understand why. You cannot explain it, even to yourself. There is no thrill. No need for glory. You are not addicted to the tunnels. Or at least that is what you tell yourself. But there is a pull inside you now. Like gravity, but colder. A need to see it through. To finish something, even if you do not know what it is, you gear up. The motions are mechanical. The checklist is burned into your hands: flashlight, fresh battery, revolver. 6 rounds. You hesitate before loading, not from fear, but fatigue. You reach the new entrance around midday. The sun is hot. The creek bed is dry, cracked open like an old scar. Someone has tried to hide the tunnel beneath a torn tarp, held in place with rocks and overgrown brambles. Beside the mouth, scratched into the dirt, is the triangle within a circle symbol. Just like on the map, you breathe once. Then you slide in. The change is immediate, the air is colder. Not refreshing, but clinical. Like stepping into a basement that was never meant to be entered. The walls are tighter. The ceiling brushes your back. The air carries a sharp metallic scent, like iron tools or rusting wire. You tell yourself it might be a good sign. Maybe a sign of ventilation. But you know better, you keep moving. The first chamber is small. A weapons cache. Neat, but hurried. Disassembled rifles lie in crates. Ammunition boxes stacked like bricks. You read the labels. Some are stamped in Cyrillic. Others in Chinese characters. This is not improvised. This is supplied. You make a mental note. Nothing too detailed. You will write it down later. If there is a later, the tunnel splits ahead, 3 paths. You mark the junction with a strip of red cloth. A habit now. You choose left. You always choose left, unless something tells you not to. You crawl forward, hands moving in rhythm, elbows guiding your weight. After about 20 feet, something changes. The floor softens. There is a give beneath your palms. Not mud. Something more hollow. You stop. You tap the ground with your knuckles. It echoes faintly. That is not normal, a trap. Maybe, a hidden chamber. Possibly, there is only one way to find out. You pull out your entrenching tool. You dig slowly. Carefully. The dirt gives way easier than expected. A foot down, your blade hits wood. You scrape more. A handle. A door, a trapdoor. You pause. Then you lift. Below is a ladder. You have never seen that before. You descend slowly. 12 feet. The walls are reinforced. The air grows colder, but cleaner. Your boots touch the bottom. You turn, step inside. This is not a tunnel, this is a bunker, a real one. The room is wide. Unnaturally wide for underground. There are electric lights strung along the ceiling. Flickering, but functional. You duck your head and move forward. You stop cold. This is not a weapons stash. This is not a supply point. This is a home. There is a cot with a folded blanket. A small shelf lined with books. A metal cup half full with tea. Still steaming. A photograph in a wooden frame, placed on the table like it belongs there. A man, a woman, and a child. All smiling, and on the far wall, a board, not a map, not plans. Photographs, American faces. You are on that wall, your photo, clipped in the upper corner. Beside it, a list. Patrol times. Base locations. Rotation dates. They knew everything. Historians later questioned whether the Viet Cong had spies inside American units. Some insisted it was just sharp observation. No need for infiltration. Just patience and pattern recognition. Either way, the result was the same. You were never off the radar. You were never safe. You feel your pulse in your neck. Your hands tighten around the flashlight, then it happens, behind you, a sound, footsteps, you spin, no one. But the air is different, the room is not empty anymore. You cannot prove it. But you know it, you back away, then, underfoot, a click, not a loud one. But definite, you look down, a wire, you missed it. Thin. Almost invisible. Wrapped in something that shouldn't be there, hair, human hair, you freeze, every part of you wants to breathe. Move. React, but you wait, maybe it is a tripwire, maybe a pressure switch, or maybe something worse. Then it begins, not fire. Not explosion, a delay, then a wall behind you erupts in dirt and wood and pressure. No flame. Just violence, you are knocked sideways, your ears ring. The world tilts. The air is thick with dust. You get up before you know you have moved. You run, no time to think, you find a tunnel. You do not care if it is the right one. You take it, you crawl like the dirt is alive, faster, left, right, over mud and wire and old roots, you find a shaft, light pours in from above, you do not hesitate, you climb, hand, foot, you burst out into the open, it is dusk, the sky is bleeding into purple, your shoulder is wet. You are bleeding. You do not know how or when it started, you collapse against a tree, the leaves above you dance in the evening light, the jungle hums, and then it hits you, the map was bait, the photo wall was a message, they were watching, they let you come, because now, you are part of their map. You spend the night beneath a sagging piece of olive green tarp, stretched low between a fallen branch and a jagged boulder. It barely covers you. The ground beneath is uneven, littered with dry leaves, twigs, and old ant trails that you no longer have the energy to brush away. Your shoulder throbs in a steady pulse, hot and deep. A makeshift bandage wraps across the wound, a piece of sock soaked with iodine and duct tape borrowed from your gear. It holds, but barely, no one comes looking for you. You are not surprised. You do not expect a search team, and you certainly do not signal. Not yet. You keep the radio silent, tucked beside you in the grass, its antenna blending in with the brush. You need time. Time to think. Time to sit without answering questions. Time to let the weight of everything that happened begin to settle, if not lift, but the mind is not a generous host. It turns in on itself. Because how do you forget something like that? How do you sleep after seeing your own face tacked to a wall in the dark, studied like a target or a piece of evidence? How do you convince yourself it was just coincidence, just luck, just war? You lie still as the jungle exhales around you. The wind picks up again. The trees rustle softly above. Somewhere to your right, a frog calls out, its voice sharp and rhythmic. To your left, crickets take over, humming in perfect disinterest. The night is alive with things that do not care about you. You almost envy them, at some point you doze off. The pain makes sure it is not for long, morning comes slowly, bleeding into the canopy in streaks of pale gold. The leaves shift colors overhead, dark green fading to olive, olive to chartreuse, each shade softer than the last. You blink awake with a start. The birds are already singing. Too loud. Too high. Too bright. Their calls sting your ears, cheerful in a way that feels careless, even cruel. You reach for your poncho. Over the night, it gathered water in its folds, just enough to pool into a corner. You lift it, form a pocket, and drink from it with both hands. The water is warm. Slightly sour. It tastes like plastic and soil. You drink anyway, eventually, you touch the radio. You let it crackle. Then you press the button, they find you before noon, 2 medics and a corporal. They fan out like clockwork, rifles ready, scanning the clearing as if you might not be you. One of the medics drops to your side, already gloved, already asking questions. He checks the bandage, winces at your work, but doesn't say much. He wraps it tighter, cleaner. You're lucky, he mutters. You nod, but the words don't land. You're not lucky. You're marked. That's the only word that fits now. Marked by the tunnels, by the war, by the people who knew your name before you even entered their world. You can feel their eyes on you still, even now, even in the open air. Back at base, you shower in silence. The water runs reddish down your back. Dirt slides off in lazy swirls. You dry off without looking in the mirror. The uniform they give you feels too clean. Too fresh. You sit alone in the debrief tent, staring at your boots until someone appears with a clipboard. You hand over the map. You give them the photos. You answer the questions they ask. But you do not mention the wall. You do not speak of your face among the others. That is not something you say out loud. That is not something you describe in bullets or coordinates. That is something that buries itself in your spine and waits. That night, you try to sleep, but every time your eyes close, you're not resting. You're back underground. Not crawling. Waiting. Like the tunnel is now inside you, digging outward, winding through your ribs, nesting behind your eyes. Your muscles twitch. Your breath shortens. You feel clay on your tongue even though it isn't there. The next morning, they come to you with another mission. A folder lands on the table. The officer doesn't sit. He just pushes it toward you with 2 fingers and says, "Another system just opened up near the river bend." You don't answer. Not right away. The room is quiet except for the slow tick of a clock on the far wall. You stare at the folder. You already know what it contains. Maps. Grid references. Entry photos. They wait. Eventually, you nod. Of course you do. You've been halfway back underground in your head since the moment you emerged. The sunlight never reached deep enough to pull you out fully. You gear up again. The motions feel slower this time. Heavier. Flashlight. You double-check it. Then add a second. Revolver. Loaded. You hate it more with each mission, not because it fails you, but because it never leaves your side. The entrance is nothing more than a shallow dip in the earth, carved out near a bamboo grove. The stalks sway lightly above, concealing the opening in green spears. An old fishing net is stretched across the mouth, dried leaves and brush woven through it. You pull it aside carefully, revealing packed dirt beneath. Right at the edge, scratched into the soil, is the same symbol from before. A triangle inside a circle. Like a signature. Like a dare, you take one breath, and then you slide in, no words. No hesitation. No fear. Fear is a luxury. You passed it a long time ago. This tunnel feels different immediately. The walls are smoother, curved with intent. Reinforced with bricks. Real bricks. Laid with care, mortar packed tight. That means proximity to something larger. Maybe a nearby village. Maybe an old French outpost. Whatever this is, it's older than the war you were trained for. You crawl forward slowly, passing a narrow side shaft that reeks of oil and burnt rubber. You pause. Tires. Machinery, then it clicks. This is not just a passage. This is logistics. Supply, the smell confirms it. The layout too. Historians would later confirm it in interviews, reports, and recovered documents. These kinds of tunnels moved more than men. They carried rifles, grenades, sacks of rice, gallons of kerosene. They carried wounded soldiers hidden in carts. They even carried news. Some had carved ruts in the floor for wheels. Some had chambers for echo testing, where claps and footfalls were analyzed for stress fractures. You're in one of those arteries now. A vein in the body of war. Up ahead, your flashlight catches something, a box. Ammo. Still sealed. Chinese script on the lid, clear and unweathered. Beside it, a coil of wire and a pair of rusted wire cutters. You reach toward the wire, thinking to examine it. Then a sound, a voice, not English. Not close, but unmistakably real. You freeze, the voice vanishes, you listen hard, no footsteps. No coughing. No shuffle, but something has changed, you scan quickly. There's only one path back. The way you came, you hold your breath, stillness, then a movement. Just behind the box. A flicker, a rat, no, too big, you raise the flashlight and aim, nothing, just disturbed dust. Marks in the floor, footprints, small, you back away, turn into the next tunnel. It widens into a room, the walls are plastered in posters. Hand-painted. Propaganda. Red stars. Rifles breaking in half. A cartoon of an American soldier being buried alive by happy villagers. You want to laugh, you try, you fail, you press deeper into the tunnel, then ahead, light, not sunlight. Lantern light, it spills in soft orange waves against the wall, you crouch, you move slowly, at the corner, you peer in, a man sits alone, cross-legged on a mat, eyes closed, hands on his knees, his uniform jacket is tied around his waist. His chest is bare. Covered in old scars and dried earth. His skin rises and falls in a rhythm slower than yours, you stare at him, he breathes once, twice, 3 times, you feel like an intruder in a church, you back away. Quiet. Careful. You don't know why, but you move as if he saw you, and chose to let you go, you take a different path, the bricks continue, the dirt grows drier, you squeeze through a partial collapse. The tunnel presses on all sides. You worm through until your hands land flat on stone, then silence, a new silence, and then, nothing, your flashlight goes dark, it gives a small pop. Then silence, no light, you slap it. Shake it, nothing, pure darkness, the kind that swallows thought, you close your eyes, no difference, you move anyway, hand ahead. Hand to the side, you count each movement, 12 crawls forward, then, a change, the air shifts, it cools. It dries, you're in a chamber, you feel it more than see it, you strike a match, the flare is small, but enough, the walls are painted, in color, not slogans, not propaganda, a river, a field, a mountain, a woman walking beneath baskets, head high, painted in blue, you're inside someone's memory, someone carved this out not for war, but for peace, you sit down, you breathe, because for the first time in days, it feels safe. Even underground, even alone, even when the footsteps return, you hear them, soft, measured, and you realize, you are not alone, and maybe you never were. You don't move, your entire body becomes still, every muscle locked in place by instinct and memory. You are barely breathing. Not from fear exactly, but from something deeper. Something primal. A recognition. Because what you are hearing now is not boots. Not the heavy, clumsy stomp of combat patrols or the nervous shuffle of new recruits. What you hear is bare skin pressing lightly against packed earth. The softest friction of heel and sole against clay. Each step is gentle. Almost respectful. Like the ground and the feet have made a quiet agreement not to disturb each other too much, the steps continue, slow, deliberate, measured, you would never have noticed them if you weren't already alert. Already frozen into the shape of caution. Already holding your breath like it might help you vanish into the wall itself. You feel like a knot in the dirt. A pocket of nothing that hopes to stay that way, your match gives out with a final hiss, the tiny flame dying into a curl of smoke that vanishes instantly in the damp, close air. With its death comes the darkness again. Not darkness as absence, but as substance. It presses around you. It slides against your face. It takes up the space where your thoughts should be. You strain every sense outward, but the footsteps stop. Suddenly, they do not retreat, they do not advance, they just stop, and now there is silence, a thick, pregnant silence that settles over your ears like a wet rag. The kind of silence tunnels know how to make. The kind that wraps around your ribs and holds you in place. It offers no explanation, no closure. It simply arrives and waits for you to deal with it. You count to 60 in your head. Slowly, carefully, nothing changes. You begin to move again. Inch by inch. Slowly, deliberately. The crawl is mechanical, not desperate. You are trying not to disturb even the air. Your hands slide forward, palms wide. Fingers seeking edges. You find the wall, cool and irregular. First it is smooth. Painted. Then rough again. You follow it with your fingertips, tracing your path forward like a blind man reading the shape of a memory. Minutes pass. Or maybe more. Time does strange things in the dark, then, finally, your hand finds something different, a seam. Wooden. Rectangular. You press against it and feel it shift under your palm, a trapdoor. You push again, this time it gives, air rises from the opening. Warmer than the tunnel. Touched by something unseen above. You climb. Slowly. Each movement quiet, careful, deliberate. Your shoulders protest. Your leg aches. But you ascend until your head breaks through into a new space. You are in another chamber, low ceilinged. Narrow. Enclosed, but not silent. There is sound here, soft, repetitive, a kind of tapping. Metal against metal. It is rhythmic, almost hypnotic. Perhaps a spoon on the rim of a pot. Perhaps a pen hitting the edge of a table. Whatever it is, it feels human. Ordinary. Terrifying. You squint into the dark, but your eyes can only drink so much. You fumble for another match, strike it, the light is faint but alive, enough. You scan the room. A desk. Small. Built into the dirt itself. Beside it, a kerosene lamp. You reach for it and light the wick. The chamber begins to glow. Shadows dance along the walls. You are surrounded, maps. Everywhere, pinned. Taped. Tacked, some are clearly handmade, drawn in ink and pencil. Others look like photocopies, grainy and faded. They cover not just the tunnels, but surface routes. American outposts. Helicopter landing zones. Water points. You move closer and see photographs too. Black and white. Some blurred. Some clear. American soldiers in formation. Jeeps. Firebase camps. Helicopters silhouetted against tropical sunsets, and then you see it, a photo that knocks the breath out of your lungs, your squad, sitting together 2 nights ago, playing cards, smiling. You remember the game. The dumb jokes. The cigarettes. Someone was close enough to capture that moment from the shadows. You sit down hard. The light flickers with your motion. Your legs feel hollow. Your hands tremble. You stare at the photo. Some say the Viet Cong had eyes everywhere. That villages were so completely penetrated by informants, American plans were obsolete before they began. Others believe it was all underground. Tunnels positioned near bases. Observation ports disguised as tree roots. Listening holes placed near mess halls. Some even whisper about radios tuned into US frequencies. You used to roll your eyes at those stories, now you believe them all. You lean closer to the photo. Someone has written something beneath it, a date, tomorrow, an ambush. You scan the maps. Trace the patrol path. You recognize every bend, every checkpoint. You fold the photo. Roll the map. You pocket them both. You extinguish the lamp. the dark rushes in again, but now it feels different, not comforting, but known. You retrace your steps. Hand on the wall. Back through the room of paintings. You move slowly, but with purpose. You pass the place where the footsteps stopped. Where you were watched. Or spared. You do not look back. You reach a shaft, another tunnel. You enter. The smell changes, earthier. You pause. Fresh clay. You recognize the scent. From training. From the field, this is new digging, a fresh extension, and you remember something they told you back in orientation: new tunnels are often clean. They lack traps. Not because of mercy, but because there hasn't been time. You follow the scent, the air grows cooler, the walls damp, then upward slope, you climb. Dig your fingers into the clay. Pull yourself along with everything you have left, you breach the surface. The jungle swells around you. It is night now. The canopy is black against the stars. You listen, nothing, then you run, back to base. You hand over the map, the photograph, the date. You speak clearly. No shaking in your voice. No hesitations, and this time, someone listens. They cancel the patrol. They move the squad 10 kilometers north. 2 nights pass, then word comes in. The original path was hit, heavy ambush, no American casualties. Because no one was there, you are called a hero, commended, saluted, but it doesn't feel like victory, because now you know something deeper than war, something worse. The enemy is not just out there in the trees. Not just hidden in camouflage or crouched with a rifle in the bush. They are under your feet, they are beside you in the dirt, they are listening, watching, waiting. You try to go back to normal. You eat. You write reports. You clean your boots. You try to sleep, but every sound makes you pause. A cough, a creak, a rustle, each one makes you wonder if a tunnel mouth is near. If someone is lying just beneath the surface, waiting for your footsteps above. Your dreams are full of shadows, narrow passages, voices, the echo of your own breath bouncing back at you from walls you cannot see. And always, footsteps, soft, persistent, never far. They offer you reassignment, out of the field, a promotion. You take it, you sign your name. You transfer to a logistics unit in Da Nang. Your days become boxes and manifests. Your nights are still, too still, so you walk, late, at the edges of camp, past the wire, into the tree line, just to hear, just to listen. Sometimes you kneel, not to enter, just to lean close to the ground, and one night, you find a hole, covered in leaves. Almost invisible, you crouch beside it, not out of duty, not out of fear, out of memory. You listen, and hear nothing, but somehow, you hear everything, because once you have lived in the tunnels, you never really leave them behind. You try to tell yourself it's over, you say it quietly. In your head. As if thinking the words enough times will make them real. You repeat the lie with discipline. A mantra. A promise you keep making because you don't know how to stop. You tell yourself you've moved on. That the worst parts are behind you now. That you have changed. That you are no longer the hollow-eyed silhouette who once emerged from the belly of the earth, blinking into the sun like it had never existed before. You tell yourself this while looking in the mirror. The uniform you wear is pressed now. The boots are polished. The collar sits crisp against your neck. Your orders say logistics. Your papers are clean. You carry a clipboard most days, not a sidearm. The closest thing you touch to a weapon is a staple remover. You track inventory. Sign manifests. Coordinate shipments. Pallets. Forklifts. Not people. Not bodies. You haven't touched a flashlight in weeks, but every night, as your head settles into the stiff curve of a regulation pillow, you still hear it, the dirt. It shifts, somewhere beneath the floor. Not loudly. Just enough to make your skin tighten and your heart hesitate. You tell yourself it is the pipes. Or the rats. Or the wind. You know it isn't, the tunnel still speaks. Even now, you start sleeping with the light on, you start double-checking your door lock. You padlock your footlocker. Not because you're afraid someone will steal your socks, but because something deep inside your spine tells you that if you do not contain the memory, if you do not shut it in tight, it will spill back out of your ribs and collarbones and fingernails, until you are nothing but a tunnel again. You are stationed in Da Nang now. A place with structure. With concrete walls and wooden beams and ceiling fans that clatter but do not collapse. You are fed on time. You shower. You laugh sometimes. You read novels and pretend to care about the endings. You should feel safe, and most days, you do, until someone brings it up. A new entrance has been discovered. Just outside the base. Covered in brush. Narrow. Untouched, they're asking for volunteers. You hear the words and feel your hand rise before the thought is even finished. It surprises you. But only for a moment, and then the truth lands hard. It was never about bravery. Never about medals or missions or orders. It was about control, because if the tunnels are going to follow you anyway, if they are going to live behind your eyes and curl around your ribs like vines, it is better to enter them awake. Aware. With your hands open instead of clenched, the entrance is where they said it would be. Half buried under the remains of a hut reduced to sticks. Its walls torn apart by old blasts. Its roof gone. There is no door. Only space. And below it, the opening. Mouth wide. Dark. Quiet, you crouch beside it, you do not hesitate, you slip inside. As always, the air changes first. Cooler, thicker. You taste the difference before your ears even register it. It smells of mineral earth and ash and something older than both. Maybe it is memory, maybe it is rot. You slide forward, belly low. Your body remembers the rhythm. You move in measured pulses. Hands forward, knees behind. A choreography written long ago. One you never meant to learn. 10 feet in, you pause. The dirt here is wrong. Looser, disturbed, you touch the wall. Feel the texture crumble beneath your fingers. This is not an old tunnel. This is a living one. Still growing. Still flexing, still dangerous. Some say the tunnel stopped when the bombs came. When the fires rose and the war turned savage above the trees. Others say they adapted. That the digging never stopped. That for every foot of jungle burned, another foot of earth was hollowed. You believe the second version now. You move forward more slowly. The walls here are raw. They breathe dampness. Roots dangle from the ceiling like veins in a corpse. You pass a half-formed chamber. Still cluttered with the tools of labor. Picks. Woven baskets. Clay piled in the corner like laundry. You even spot a cooking pot, bent and scarred, being used as a makeshift scoop. This is not ruin, this is construction, a home being built beneath the war. At a junction, you stop again. There are footprints here, tiny, bare, the toes are splayed. The impression's shallow. Soft. Like a child has passed recently. Several times. No shoes. Just skin and earth. It breaks something inside you. You take the narrower path. Not because of logic. But because instinct leads where maps cannot. It curves in tightly, pressing your elbows into your ribs. You feel it bend and twist, like something asleep. You pass another chamber. You hear it, breathing, faint, not snoring. Not panicked, steady. Soft. Deep, you match it with your own breath. Slowing yourself. Trying to melt into silence. Whoever is there does not move. You back away, because today is not for contact. Today is not for intel or capture or victory. Today is about presence, about bearing witness. The tunnel tightens again. The walls sweat. Clay gathers beneath your palms. You reach a point where collapse has narrowed the path to the width of a ribcage. You slide through, one shoulder at a time. Emerging into stillness, but not absence, held stillness, like the air itself is waiting. You stop, something calls you to dig, just a little, habit, maybe something more. You move a few handfuls of dirt, then cloth, a shirt, faded blue, then bone, small, white. You do not dig more, you do not need to, there is a story here. And it is finished. Among tunnel rats, there is a story told in mess halls and under whisper. That every tunnel has a guardian. Someone who never left. Someone whose body joined the structure. Not enemy. Not friend. Just presence, a warning, or maybe a witness. You say sorry, softly, just in case. You crawl on, the slope begins. Subtle at first. Then steeper. You angle your body into it. You pull and drag and breathe, the air changes again, drier, thinner. You crest into a chamber where the ceiling opens slightly. A shaft above lets in sunlight in golden beams. It falls gently. Like honey through amber, you smell herbs, smoke, lemongrass. You move toward it. There is an altar here, simple, old, a few coins, a cracked bowl of rice, a photograph, its frame dusty but intact. A man. Thin. Strong. Silent, someone's memory. You do not kneel, but you sit, not to worship, but to bear witness, because you understand now, this war has layers. And most of them are beneath. You do not mark your exit, no chalk, no ribbons, no trail of crumbs. You are not trying to remember this one, you are trying to forget, but forgetting is not permitted, not here, not by the tunnel. As you crawl toward the surface, your hand brushes a sharp corner. You pause, a nail, driven into the wall, from it hangs a string, and at the end, a card, small, worn, written in precise, patient English. If you found this, you were meant to. You do not take it, you leave it hanging, you nod once, because now you understand. Some things are meant to be remembered, others belong to the earth, and some truths live only in the space between. You don't talk about it anymore. You no longer mention the string or the nail or the card that swayed ever so gently in that hidden pocket of earth. You do not bring up the shrine, tucked into a carved alcove, its photograph coated with dust, its incense stick still giving off the last faint curl of warmth when you arrived. You keep silent about the footprints you followed, the ones that were too small to belong to any soldier, too delicate to have carried the weight of combat gear, too soft to have marched through war. You never speak of the breath you heard in that unfinished chamber. It rose and fell like waves lapping at a shore, steady and unhurried, unaware of your presence. Unaware of your pause, instead, you do what you have learned to do. You write the mission report with practiced attachment, sealing experience into language the way you might close a lid on a box you'd rather not open again. You document what is expected. Coordinates. Terrain conditions. The stability of the entrance. You mention the tools recovered, the state of the walls, the dimensions of the shaft. You include a brief note about the altar, but not what rested on it. You choose the phrase cultural residue and allow it to sit there in the report like a placeholder for something sacred that doesn't translate well into military jargon. You leave out the things that have no category. Because some truths do not live in language. They do not reduce. They do not explain. They settle deeper, beneath vocabulary. They take up residence beneath your skin, in the tissues behind your eyes, in the backs of your hands. They sleep lightly in your silence, waking only when the world quiets enough to let them breathe. And when the tents go still and the last radio flickers into static, those truths begin to whisper again. Not in sentences, but in sensation. A few weeks pass. The kind that drift like breath, like long exhalations through a half-open mouth. You fill them with logistics. Cargo manifests printed in fine type. Fuel schedules mapped in columns. You stencil bold letters onto wooden crates. You push papers, align supply chains. You sit beside men who have never felt the weight of the earth pressing against their back while crawling through spaces that could collapse at any moment. You attend briefings with commanders who speak in crisp tones, outlining strategy as if they were arranging chess pieces. Their fingers trace maps that lie flat, pretending the world is two-dimensional. You try not to look at the map on the far wall of operations. You train your eyes to stay on the agenda, on the speaker, on the table. But eventually, your gaze finds it anyway. The red pins multiply, every day, more appear. Their long legs stretch outward, spider-like, forming a pattern that looks less like a strategy and more like a spreading infection. They inch outward from the center, encircling blank spaces, branching along supply lines, forming a shape that no one wants to name. Someone makes a joke one day, their voice light, saying that if the pins keep spreading, the whole country will eventually collapse into one giant crater. You do not laugh, because you have already crawled into that joke. You have felt the breath of it close against your skin. You have tasted its residue on your tongue. Eventually, your name returns to the list, reconnaissance detail, assigned to Quang Tri province. The mission file is thin. A single page. The entry describes a collapsed site. Labeled low risk. No evidence of deep complexity. No indication of secondary shafts or structural depth. You know before you even arrive how wrong that is, because the paperwork never understands the ground. You arrive late in the afternoon. The air carries heat long past the sun's peak. The kind of heat that clings to skin, that seeps through fabric. The sky is bleached with light, pale and washed out. The field looks gentle from a distance. Wide blades of grass shift with the breeze. Trees in the distance sway with a kind of indifference. Everything looks soft. Almost beautiful, but beauty has no authority here. Not over what happened. At the center of the field, a crater yawns open. It is too wide. Too clean. Its symmetry is unnatural. It looks less like a natural wound and more like something inflicted. A precise, deliberate violence. The kind of mark left by things that fall from the sky with names that sound like numbers. B-52. Arc light. You know the type. You know what those bombs do. They erase. They do not wound. They obliterate. Trees become vapor. Clay becomes liquid. Stone becomes powder. Even silence becomes louder in the absence of everything else. You walk the edge slowly. Your boots press into the soil. The ash here is thin, layered across the ground like talcum. Your steps leave prints that seem to vanish behind you as soon as you move forward. You don't rush. You've done this before, and then you see it, half buried, split at the center, its shape warped by heat and collapse, the entrance, covered in a mixture of soot and crushed bamboo. Still recognizable. Still holding. Still waiting. You kneel beside it, place your hand just above the opening. Your fingers hover there. Not touching. Just feeling, then you begin, no fanfare. No hesitation. No signal sent, you gear up and descend. The instant you pass below the surface, the air changes. It closes around you like a hand, tight and unyielding. The scent strikes you first. Not just damp earth or mildew. This is something more industrial. Burned plastic. Melted cable. Charred wood. The acrid sting clings to your throat. You taste it at the back of your tongue. Each breath scrapes its way inside you. This is not simply a tunnel, it is a scar in the ground, and scars remember. You crawl slowly. Deliberately. The walls around you have been warped by heat. They blister in strange places. They shimmer with residue. Support beams sag where the temperature bent them inward. Your palm brushes over something smooth. Not stone. Not clay, handprints, pressed into the soot, reaching toward a light that never came. you stop, lower your forehead to the wall, just for a breath, just for a moment, then you move on, deeper inside, the tunnel gives way to a chamber. It tilts to the left, its frame pulled sideways by the force of collapse. The floor is slick with powdered earth. Dust rises as you enter. And yet, in the middle of that ruin, something has survived, a table, simple. Square, it sits anchored in the center. A melted radio rests atop it. Its dials have melted into curves. The shell is blackened. Fragile. Next to it, a notebook. The wire binding is scorched, the metal warped. You reach out carefully, your fingers grazing the pages, they shift, some fall apart, but many hold, ink remains, line after line, a single sentence, scrawled over and over again, different hands. Different shades. Different levels of urgency, we are still here, you don't flip through, you don't rush, each repetition carries weight, each one lands like a heartbeat, you have seen those words before. On walls, in dreams, in the quiet just before waking, you sit down, legs folding beneath you, the notebook resting in your lap. You try to picture the people who wrote these lines. Not to decode them. Not to interrogate their meaning. But to feel them. Not as defiance. But as proof, that someone lived here, that someone continued, that someone refused to disappear. You rise eventually, the tunnel grows narrow again. The walls press closer. The beams here are clean. Fresh. Not survivors, but replacements. You can smell the wood. It holds the scent of sap and ash. Signs that someone returned. After the bomb, after the fire, after the silence, they came back, they rebuilt, you pass crates. Empty now, metal tins, wrappers from gauze, a scalpel left behind. Its blade rusted, but shaped by use. Not discarded. Not forgotten. It was placed with care, you reach a fork, one path wide, the other narrow, you choose the narrow, it constricts, like breath held too long, at the end, you find it, a stretch of clay smoother than the rest, carved into it, precise and slow, is a single date, tomorrow's, and beneath it, in English, visit, you do not stay, you do not breathe too deeply, your pulse climbs. Your throat tightens, you turn, you crawl back, faster now. You bump against the walls. Your hands scrape. Your back arches to fit the passage. You climb up toward the fading light, when you surface, the day is already slipping away, the wind carries dust from the crater into the air. The light has gone strange, neither fully day nor night. The sky is a deep violet. That Vietnam kind of purple, thickened by heat, touched faintly by smoke, you return to base, you sit at your desk, you say nothing, you write the report, minimal findings. Structural compromise. No contact, you keep the notebook, that night, you lie awake, the ceiling fan turns slowly above you. Its rhythm is steady. A tick with every rotation. The sound slices the air. It sounds too much like rotors in the distance. Too much like memory, and you wonder, not with fear, not even with hope, but with something deeper, something that has no name, were you the one visiting, or were you the one being received, because something in that tunnel waited for you, and it knew you would come. You wake before dawn, long before the first engine turns over on base, before boots hit gravel, before metal lockers slam shut in unison like a morning drumbeat. The sky outside the window is still a pure, uninterrupted black, the kind of darkness that feels endless. No light bleeds in from the horizon. No early calls of birds have yet broken the silence. The air hangs thick with stillness, the kind that presses against the lungs but does not move, your cot creaks softly as you shift. The blanket, thin and standard issue, is wrapped unevenly around your legs. It has twisted in your sleep, though sleep may not be the right word for what you've done. Your boots are still on. Mud still clings in the tread. There is a dull ache in your lower back, the same one that always greets you when you wake. It feels less like a cramp and more like the memory of weight, like a body that once learned how to sleep half buried and never fully unlearned it. You move your head slightly to the side and hear the faint, familiar crinkle of paper. The map. Still folded beneath your pillow, its presence now habitual, like a totem you no longer question. You reach for it. The paper slides out with resistance, the folds soften from days of being pressed into sweat and body heat. You rest it on your chest for a moment and stare at the ceiling. It feels heavier than paper should. Like it has absorbed the weight of what it depicts. Routes. Entrances. Markings. Places that still live beneath your skin. Across the barracks, the notebook remains where you left it. Still unopened. Spine facing outward. It waits in the corner of the room, undisturbed. Its silence is louder than anything else in this space. You don't need to open it to remember what is inside. You already know the words. A single sentence, written dozens of times, each line stacked over the last like sediment. We are still here. Each repetition laid down by a different hand, but all with the same intent. A message. A record. A declaration written not to inform, but to endure. You haven't touched the notebook since the day you emerged. Since the day the tunnel gave you back. And you haven't needed to. The words are etched into memory now, carved deep enough to remain whether or not the pages survive. They live in your body the way scars do. The way certain smells do. Permanent, and always close, you sit up slowly. Careful not to disturb the silence more than necessary. Your eyes take a few seconds to adjust. The darkness within the barracks is softer than the one outside, broken by shadows that stretch across the floor like long-forgotten soldiers lying at rest. You see the rows of cots, identical and neatly spaced. You see the uniforms hanging, pressed and prepared, swaying slightly though the air is still. A dog tag catches the faintest glint of light from a distant bulb and swings once. Back and forth. Back and forth. As if remembering a rhythm it once knew. Today is the date. You do not need to say it aloud. You do not need a calendar to confirm it. You have known it was coming for weeks. The number has lived in your mind since you first saw it carved carefully into the clay wall of that shaft. Not hastily etched. Not scribbled in a rush. Placed there with intention. With expectation. Someone carved it knowing it would matter to someone else. And somehow, you know it was meant for you. You think, just for a moment, about ignoring it. You imagine staying here. Remaining in bed. Rising only when the morning call demands it. Putting on a clean shirt. Walking to the mess hall. Drinking bad coffee. Nodding through briefings. Letting the day pass like all the others. You imagine pretending. Pretending not to remember the numbers. Pretending tunnels do not speak. Pretending the earth does not hold memory. That soil does not whisper in your direction. But even as the thought crosses your mind, you know it's not an option. Not for you. Not now. Maybe not ever, because the underground keeps time differently. It remembers in ways the surface world never does. Its clocks are not made of metal or gears. They are made of impressions left in clay. Of breaths held in silence. Of days counted in footsteps and candle wax. And today, that clock has turned. It points directly at you. You rise from the cot without ceremony. No speech. No dramatic pause. You move with quiet certainty, the kind that comes not from confidence but from recognition. The kind that belongs to someone who is not making a choice, but simply fulfilling something already known. There is no squad waiting. No commanding officer checking a clipboard. No radio call to confirm departure. You move alone. Not because you were ordered to, but because something inside you compels it. This is not a mission on paper. It is a return. A call answered, the field is unchanged, you arrive at the crater with a strange sense of familiarity. As if time has paused around this place. The hollow in the earth is still there, framed by the same indifferent trees. Their branches sway lazily in the breeze, untouched by memory. The birds above sing brightly, unaware of what lies below. The air smells like dew and ash, the same mix it always has. You approach the edge with steady steps. The shaft is there. Exactly where it was. Still propped open by that scorched beam. The soil surrounding it remains untouched. No footprints. No disturbances. Not even a broken twig to suggest another presence. You kneel slowly, placing your hand on the rim. The wood feels cool beneath your palm. Slightly damp. You let your fingers rest there for a long moment. Then you take a breath, deeper than usual, and begin your descent. It is darker this time. The light from the surface fades quickly. The deeper you go, the more complete the darkness becomes. The air grows dense, cold at first, then shifting into something warmer, thicker, more ancient. There is no movement here. No breeze. Only the presence of what came before. You crawl the path like someone tracing a line they wrote themselves. You know each turn. Each incline. Each scar in the wall. You pass the melted radio, now sunk further into itself. You pass the wall with the handprints, still reaching, still unanswered. The silence here is not empty. It is full of waiting, then you see it, the shaft. The message still carved clearly. One word, deliberate and whole, visit. But something new has joined it, a rope ladder, it hangs without explanation. A clean line into the dark, suspended like a question. You didn't bring it. You didn't expect it. But its presence does not startle you. It feels natural. Inevitable. You pause, then you understand that pausing changes nothing. You place your foot on the first rung, it creaks under your weight. The rope shifts in your grip. Step by step, you descend. The drop is longer than you anticipated. The earth tightens around you. The temperature rises slightly. The air grows scented, faintly sweet, faintly spiced. Almost like someone once cooked here, then your boots meet ground, and the chamber opens around you. Immediately, you know this is different, no ash. No collapse. No flaking walls or beams left to rot. The space is swept, tended. The walls are smooth, shaped by hand, softened by intention. Order exists here. A kind of quiet care. It surrounds you like a presence. A mat lies across the floor, woven with precision. A folded blanket rests nearby. In the corner, a clay lantern glows with a golden, breathing light. Its flame does not flicker in fear. It is steady. Calm, and then, you see the food. A bowl of rice, steam still curling faintly above it. Vegetables arranged in gentle arcs. A spoon rests beside them, not placed hastily, but with thought. A single place. A meal meant for someone. Possibly for you. You look around, no one is here, and yet, you feel watched. Not threatened. Not judged. Just observed. You move forward. Sit on the mat. Cross your legs. You do not eat because of hunger. You eat because it is right. Because this is not a gift. It is a conversation. A wordless reply. Your eyes drift to the wall, there, painted in two scripts. Bold. Clear, not enemy. Not friend. Just below, you read it once, then again, and again, it speaks with clarity. With truth. It does not accuse. It does not beg. It simply is, because you have never hated the ones who built these tunnels. You were never their hunter. You were simply trying to survive the same burdens they carried. The same dark. The same silence. You notice something, a small box, wooden and worn, tucked into the wall. You crawl to it. Inside, matches, a silk scarf the color of dried blood, and a photograph. You unfold it. 3 men. Vietnamese. In uniform, they are smiling, not for the camera, for each other. On the back, one line, written in clear, practiced English. I was here too. You hold it for a long time, then you fold it again and press it gently into the clay wall beside you. Not to hide, not to take, but to return. As thanks, you rise. Slowly, the ladder waits, each rung carries you upward like a breath. A release. A moment, when you emerge, the jungle is awake. The sun is above the trees. The world looks the same, but something inside you does not walk the same. Something listens now, and will always listen, because below you, the silence still breathes, and remembers. You've started dreaming in tunnels, not the kind of nightmares that lurch you upright in a tangle of sweat-drenched sheets. Not the explosive kind filled with screaming echoes, crumbling clay, or the sudden blaze of muzzle flash. These dreams are quieter than that. Slower. They arrive like fog, not fire. You drift gently through long corridors etched in memory, crawling not just with your limbs but with the soft, ghost-like pull of your thoughts. It feels less like dreaming and more like remembering a rhythm your body never unlearned. You move forward through the hush of humid air, the pressure of packed earth pressing against your ribs, your forearms, your knees. Sometimes, there's a destination. A chamber that glows faintly in recognition. A bend in the passage with a sentence carved into the clay. A specific scent, a particular slope, a moment preserved in texture alone. But more often, there isn't. Most nights, you simply slide forward through a maze without a map, guided by something deeper than sight. The tunnel does not speak, yet it leads. Beneath you, the ground hums. Not with sound exactly, but with something close. Something old. It might be breath. Or the echo of memory still soaked into the dirt. Or maybe it's the weight of absence itself. You pass rooms where candles flicker with a kind of hesitant life, tiny flames twitching on the edge of vanishing. They paint shadows on the walls that dance but never speak. You catch sight of bowls set down beside bamboo mats, rice hardened into gray pebbles. A cup of tea, surface still and dark. You know it has long since gone cold. There are voices, just barely audible. Low, melodic. Whispers that slip through the walls and into your chest. They murmur names that mean nothing to your mind, but your body reacts all the same. A tightening behind the sternum. A shortness of breath that isn't fear. It is recognition without context. There's no panic in these dreams. No violence. No rush. Just a persistent weight that never lifts. It isn't painful, but it is permanent. It settles behind your ribs like something placed there on purpose. A second heartbeat made of silence. When you finally wake, it happens in pieces. The ceiling above feels unnaturally tall. Too smooth. Too open. The softness of the mattress beneath you is somehow offensive. You press your palms into it, wishing for the dense resistance of clay. You sit up slowly, looking around the room as if something might peel away and reveal the tunnel's entrance behind a wall or under the floor. But it never does. You blink in the pale light and feel the sense of absence more than presence. In daylight, you move through the world as expected. You perform your role with practiced ease. When people speak, you smile. When they joke, you laugh. You stand straight, salute when required, drink the base coffee poured into thick ceramic mugs. It tastes like dirt even before memory layers its own flavor on top. You go where you're sent. You respond to commands. But nothing makes contact with the part of you that once felt real. It's as though you've been painted onto a scene, a shadow pinned into a uniform, a figure acting out motions it no longer understands. You never actually leave the tunnels, not completely, not in any way that truly matters. There is always a part of you still listening. Still tuned to a frequency that isn't spoken aloud. It's deeper than hearing. It's a kind of sensing that no one else seems to possess. When you walk across the compound, you notice things others miss. A tile shifted half an inch. A patch of earth that sounds wrong beneath a boot. A faint vibration under the soles of your feet that makes your spine stiffen even when your mind doesn't understand why. You glance at storm drains and wonder what they'd echo like if you spoke into them. You find yourself staring at the spaces beneath buildings, calculating depth. Measuring shadows. One morning, you hear a thud behind a maintenance shed. Someone nearby says it was just a broom falling. No threat. Nothing to react to. But your body answers before your thoughts arrive. Your knees bend. Your hands drop. You crouch low, fingers spread into the dirt. Reaching, listening. You're halfway to drawing a flashlight that isn't on your belt before you realize what you're doing. You don't speak of it. You never ask for reassignment. You don't need to. They stop sending you into tunnels on their own. Nobody makes a speech about it. No one mentions it directly. But the message is clear in their glances. In the careful phrasing of new orders, in the way they watch you when certain words are spoken. Collapsed shaft. Unknown entrance. Gas leak underground. You hear these phrases and don't flinch, but others notice the quiet in your face. They watch the way your fingers curl beneath the table, the way your eyes lose focus for a breath too long. They know, you are no longer a man who enters tunnels. You are a man who was claimed by them. You have gone as far as a human being can travel below the surface without becoming part of the soil itself. People still debate what happened to tunnel rats after the war. Some scholars insist they returned. They reference photographs, smiling men at weddings. Holding children, grilling steaks in suburban backyards. They point to employment records, mortgage approvals, holiday cards mailed on time. They believe in the narrative of successful reintegration. But others are not so sure. They speak of men who came back with something missing. Or something extra. They say the tunnels took pieces no one could see. They say that silence, prolonged and total, eventually begins to echo back through the person who bears it. You do not debate the theory. You know where you stand. You sit alone at your desk and write letters that no one will ever read. Not to your parents. Not to the command. Not even to yourself. You write to the darkness. To the floor. To the dirt. To the men whose names you never learned. You write because the words ask to be released, not because you expect them to be received. They emerge slowly, pulled from you in shreds. Each sentence feels like an exhale meant to empty the lungs of memory. You write, I saw them, they saw me, we didn't fire, we just breathed. You write, they were human, so was I, at least for a moment. You write, I think they forgave me. Eventually, time moves on, though it never really feels like it. One day. Your time in Vietnam comes to an end. There is no ceremony. No folded flag. No medallion placed in your palm. Just an order. A seat on a plane. You board with the others, shoulders brushing in silence. You take the window seat and stare outward. As the aircraft pulls away, the trees slide past below. The jungle shrinks. It becomes a blurred mosaic of greens and browns. But your eyes remain fixed on the ground. You search for the signs. Small holes. Broken angles. Black shadows nestled in foliage. Even from 30,000 feet, you cannot help but scan for entrances. You wonder if someone is still there. Still watching. Still waiting, you return to a life that feels enormous. Rooms feel too wide. Ceilings loom like cliffs. Beds stretch out into unfamiliar openness. Showers bounce sound in every direction, a clamor where once there was sacred stillness. Even the floor beneath your feet betrays you, refusing to compress. The world is open and clean and noisy and soft, and none of it feels like it belongs. Sometimes, it becomes too much. You rise in the dark, not knowing what woke you, and leave the bed. You lie flat on the floor, arms at your sides, cheek against the carpet. You breathe deeply, trying to find the weight again. Not the weight of stress, but the weight of belonging. Of pressure. Of knowing exactly how much space your body takes up. You try to explain it once, to someone who asked. They wanted to understand. You chose your words carefully. You said, "It's not that I enjoyed it. It's just that it made sense." They nodded. They smiled with sympathy, but they did not understand. They will not, they cannot, because the tunnel was never just a structure. It was a grammar of silence. A place where language broke apart and rebuilt itself in pressure and breath. It taught you how to move without noise. How to sense without seeing. How to listen without ears. It was not a place you left. It was a way of being. When the world becomes too loud, when voices pile over each other, when the ceiling stretches away like a sky that no longer holds anything, you let yourself go quiet. You return, not in body, but in rhythm, back, down, in. The air begins to cool, the walls grow tight again, a flashlight flickers in your hand, even though you know you're holding nothing, and the tunnel greets you the way it always has, not with sound. Not with light, but with memory's hush. With the stillness that remembers, with the pressure of earth that has not forgotten how your body moved. You breathe in, you breathe out, and in that silence, you hear it again, the whisper. It comes from nowhere, it comes from everywhere. It says, "You're still here," and so, the journey ends, not with a bang or a march or a flag raised in sunlight, but with a soft descent into silence. A return not to war, but to the earth that held it. You have moved through darkness. Through fear. Through unspoken understanding. You have seen things that cannot be filed, cannot be named, cannot be shared without being misunderstood. It is late now, let the noise of the day fall away, let your breath slow, let your shoulders drop, picture that final tunnel. Picture it empty now. Undisturbed. Its walls settling into stillness once again. No movement. No voices. No fear. Just a narrow passageway where the air moves gently, like an exhale through a reed. The earth above is thick and warm. Not heavy, but comforting. Not hostile, but holding. You are not crawling anymore, you are gliding, you float through layers of memory. Past rooms where candles burned low. Past chambers where men waited in silence. Past meals left for someone who never returned. The dirt no longer holds threat. It holds remembrance. Your limbs begin to feel heavier. Your body anchors into stillness. You are not alert anymore, you are not searching, you are simply being. The flashlight dims, not because it failed, but because it no longer needs to shine. The path is known, the story is told. You can rest now, truly rest, because tonight, there are no footsteps, no breathing down the shaft, no invitations etched in clay, only sleep, only peace. The war is over, the tunnels are quiet, and you, finally, completely, are above ground.